necessity. What do you think?
It has. Especially if you had one or both parents that were college educated. They stressed, I'm sure, they wanted their children to be educated. It was the way to be upperly mobile. Now it's kind of lost its luster because it's so expensive, creates so much debt, and then there's that, there's some truth to it. You end up with a degree that's not real employable.
Now, when you say employable, you mean like these degrees that people say, what you major in? Oh, I majored in this. You think, what's that supposed to do? You know, you don't know.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not.
Philosophy major.
Or
history.
What's that thing where, not government, where people usually that are in politics take.
Poli-sci.
Yeah, poli-sci. I mean, how would that work in the real world if you weren't going to be in public office?
Law school. Law school, public office.
Or most of
a lot of lawyers, they major in poli-sci.
Why do they call it poli-sci?
I say it's political science.
But that's what everybody calls it, poli-sci.
Right.
Are you glad you went to college? If you had to do it all over again?
I am happy I went to college. Wasn't necessarily, it's the first time I've been away from home. And that experience is important. A lot of people live in a small town. I mean, they have close bonds with family and friends. I understand all that. That's important. Community is important, but I think it's good for young people to branch out a little bit on their own. I mean, you're not out there that far. I mean, your parent, but going to school away from home, living with people you don't know. I mean, I lived in a dorm for a couple years. It was a good experience overall. But you have to learn to adapt and live with other people. They're different than you.
Yeah.
Lifestyles, their thoughts, beliefs, everything can be different than yours. Being able to negotiate that and be successful.
And not make anybody mad.
Yeah.
You know, I remember.
Or they don't want to take a swing at you anyway.
You know, taking a swing at somebody, that's not as. In a way, we're not worried about that anymore, or are we? You know what I'm saying? I mean, back when I went to school, you didn't really mouth off to anybody because you may get in a fight. Odds were pretty good.
Kelly, my wife, teaches in the city school system. She's at Cleveland High this year, her first year at Cleveland High. And she's told me multiple times that the fighting is up this year, in her opinion. She was in the L. Ross Elementary School, and her love is the middle school, Cleveland Middle, but she's at Cleveland High. She says there's fights every day.
I would have thought the fights had slowed down. But I guess I'm wrong. Wonder why they're up. Is there a reason?
I think so. There's a lot of heated rhetoric going on. People, if you watch the news, I guess if you're smart, you don't watch 24/7 news. I watch too much of that stuff. A lot of people tell me they don't want to do it. Gets their blood pressure up, just upsets them, makes them angry. Of course, there's a lot of money being made in that 24/7 news. They run the same story over and over and over. And it's always, too much of it is not necessarily what I'm doing. I'm against you. All I got to be is not for you.
It's tribal, isn't it? People want to be in a tribe.
Absolutely. It's biological.
It's biological to want to be a member of a tribe.
Clan, tribe, yeah. Absolutely.
Are you on Twitter?
I'm on Facebook. Twitter
is the Wild West, man. Or not completely the Wild West, but it's news, fake news, all kinds of news. But we have to pick out now what we believe, and it's so hard to figure out what news is real. And you know, if I look something up on Google, they'll send that to me all the time, and I wonder if I'm just getting the news that I want to hear, that biases me, that goes along with with what I'm thinking. You know, if I'm mad about, I mean, you'll see something on there that says, you hear all stuff about this Ukraine and people are against Zelensky and all this stuff, and you know, they're turning on him now, and how could he be guilty? You know, I've seen it on TV, but if you were kind of against him, they'll send you news to where you're more and more against him.
Right.
So how do we get the news?
They know exactly who their viewers are.
It's all about the viewers.
Right.
It may not even be what they're
You're
thinking.
Fox, I'm CNN. They know that. They're going to send us.
And here's MSNBC, and now here's what's that other one? OAN or
Right.
I quit watching about all of them. All I watch now is the Ukraine war at night on CNN because they really have better coverage, I think. They show more pictures.
You know, I'm a few years older than you, and I remember I'm a child of the suburbs, child of the 70s. You had it wouldn't need 24/7 news. I remember when Ted Turner started CNN.
I remember that too.
And you had your 30-minute news. NBC, ABC, CBS, you picked your broadcaster. You had 30-minute news.
And
that was it.
He sat behind that desk, and he, like on Archie Bunker, did he like Walter Cronkite? I can't remember what the deal was.
That's right.
He would always mention Walter Cronkite.
I love that show. My father loved that show. Every Saturday night we watched All in the Family. I loved it.
I got the reruns here a while back, and I started watching them, but it was a little too dramatic for me for watching at nights. But boy, it was funny, wasn't it? But I don't know where to get the right news. Do you know where to get the right news?
I'm probably not reading the right things either. I mean, there's a lot. The interesting thing is on this, I mean, so many opportunities. Sky's the limit. All these different internet, online news. I like print journalism when I can find something decent. I like investigative journalism, Dee, where, you know, at least I think they're credible journalists really looking into something.
I can tell by the way they're talking if they're passionate
Spending
about
the time investigating. I mean, it's hard work, researching it.
Yeah.
And instead of just a pundit on TV just running his mouth. And there's a skill in that.
There is.
There's an absolute skill in being able to just be a face. You know, and so much of it now, of course, is opinion. It's just my opinion. People will turn on my show. They want to hear my opinion on the news of the day. They don't have to be true or false. It's just they agree with my opinion.
And they'll attract viewers that agree with them. And
Absolutely.
so now they got a platform. But where do you hear the honest? And it makes you wonder. Back in the 70s when they were giving the news, was that real? I mean, we can't be for sure that even they were telling the right thing. Were they just really good at being a pundit? That's a thought, right?
It is. You know, the criticism of the media, it's more on the right than the left. The lamestream media, I hear that all the time on Facebook. Mm-hmm. Well, the lamestream media, the corporate media, and it is corporate. Both sides is corporate.
Well,
they exist to make money, so they're targeting viewers.
Well, so did the 6 o'clock news then. I mean, they were to make money.
They were, and CBS was a corporation. NBC, ABC, they didn't seem to exist. Now it's spectacle every day, or creating a spectacle, making something out of everything. Right?
Yeah.
Everything's a spectacle. Everything needs to be covered. Everything deserves equal weight. You'll see something that's like, why is this news? Why it's maybe funny or interesting. That's not news.
You know something I've noticed when they'll say, instead of saying Richard Hughes came in the door, they'll say, did Richard Hughes pull up in a car, and it would be just something a little different. Say, oh, did he walk? Huh, he must be against cars. They never really said that, but they got the listener to thinking that.
That's an interesting point.
Because they won't make a statement.
That is an
They'll
interesting
pose
point.
that, what they
so
call
I can create something in my own mind. You leave something there, and in my mind, I'll fill it in.
I think that's what they do a lot of times. What do they call that, an interrogatory question or something? Where you just...
I hadn't thought about it, but I do agree with
I've
you.
noticed that. When they usually do that, I think, they're trying to get me to think something different. I just want to know what happened on the news. I want to know what the weather is and that sort of thing. And I don't really want their opinion. I found out mine's as good as theirs are.
It is.
And if it's not, I'll still live with it. I'll create
Right.
my own reality. Can we create our own reality?
That's what they say. They say that, especially the ones on the extreme left and right, create their own reality.
I believe you can create some of your own reality. You can see stuff so one-sided.
You can. I can make myself believe something. If all I have to do is want to, right? If I want to believe in UFOs, I can believe it.
Mm-hmm. Do you believe it? I actually believe in UFOs.
I believe in unidentified flying objects. I mean, when I was in law school, they had Art Bell. Remember Art Bell? You probably don't remember Art Bell. It was all-night radio, paranormal, UFO.
Oh yeah, that's when he didn't start out doing that, but that's
Right.
what he got traction in.
I think he's deceased now, but I'd be studying late with Art Bell and all these people calling in about, ghosts, UFOs, all kind of paranormal stuff. Never really bought it, but I mean, it's fun. The cranks would call in. I mean, people they seemed like they believed it.
Do you know if they had years ago when they thought the Earth was flat? Who's that guy that said that the Earth was round and they didn't believe him?
Copernicus.
So they would have said he was a conspiracy theorist, right?
Yeah, a heretic.
Heretic.
Yeah. Yeah, an anti-religious heretic, because that was contrary to the Bible.
And things go on and on from that. So this is nothing new as far as the masses trying to stop people from thinking free and being objective about stuff.
You're making a good point, and I think about that all the time. I get heated up. There's nothing new. The conflict between science and faith, conservatives and liberals, different worldviews, different cultures. It's nothing new that's been going on, but now it's magnified by media, right? 24/7, everywhere. Social media, political media, just if you allow yourself, you're bombarded with it, and it's got to affect you. If you absorb enough of that stuff, you think it's got to have some kind of impact on you.
It does, and Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. I guess the internet is new, but I think what he was talking about was that.
A lot of people like this, don't waste your time. I've decided you can run your lips. I don't believe that.
Do you think that people have already made up their mind, or are there really open-minded people that are open to learn?
I think there's a lot more of them than we think, but that's not who you normally see on television. Do you? It's what we got now. It's people with opinions on everything. Everything's spin now, spin doctors, and that's nothing new. In politics, we've always had propaganda on the right and the left. We have. If you read history, I've read some, not enough, but the propaganda, the spinning now, there's money in it, Dee, big money. Keep them stirred up, keep them divided, keep them angry. People make a lot of money on that. And how are you going to pull the plug on that?
And you're right, it is sped up. There's nothing new. None of this is new. But it has been sped up through the quick access to news.
Yep.
I got a little stock account, and in the mornings I'll wake up and I'm starting to open my email, and they'll send me a news flash. Quarterly reports to be out by 10 o'clock. I go, oh my goodness, the quarterly reports are going to be out by 10. And then I come to my senses and say, what's that got to do with what I've got to do today? It's not going to affect me. Or wage reports came in at higher than they said, and then you get home, and then I get to the office the evening, and they say the reports were erroneous. They weren't even correct. So
They want a reaction.
That's
Reactionaries want a reaction out of you.
It's a scratch.
When you do nothing, they're not winning.
It's an itch. It's what they
want you to. They want to trigger you. They want to react. Want something out of you.
I call it a itch scratch scenario. In other words, if I can cause you to itch and I can also scratch it, now you're coming to me.
I agree with you.
If I can trigger you and I can calm you down, now you're just coming back for that same dopamine.
I agree.
Now, if I watch these crime shows every night, I like those crime shows, investigative reports, and
True crime.
yeah. Who's that guy that's got the Keith Morrison? He's my favorite. And if I watch them a lot, I start getting a little negative in my mind. You know, like doom and gloom. I
Sure.
think you might be better off to watch MTV.
Watch music videos.
Music videos. They're happy.
No, I agree with that too. If you read heavy things, dark things, I mean, I go to a lot of movies, see a lot of violent movies. Mm-hmm. It's got to affect your mood.
It's got to. What you feed it, it's got to.
Yeah, what you decide to focus on, pay attention to.
It's got to affect it. And now, but then you get to.
Doesn't mean you're going to act on it. There's that whole thing about, you know, the violent movies trigger. They trigger unbalanced people, but they were unbalanced to begin
and
with.
so does
not
this,
normal people.
Yeah, that's not normal people.
But it has to have an effect on you.
Just on your overall mood.
Yeah, an attitude, mood.
But then we get into this. With that said, we get into what is our obligation in this world or in this life to try to solve the issues that we perceive as wrong. Because if we didn't watch the news, and if we didn't read the narratives, and if we didn't see their opinions, now we don't know what's going on at all, because I can't go to Kentucky and see that thing. I've got to rely on somebody telling me. And if I perceive it as wrong, what obligation? That's where people, like maybe me and maybe you at times, it's not that we really are disturbed by it, but we feel like we have an obligation. What is our obligation?
That's another good question, and I've had that discussion with, like, my son Jack Henry's in his early 20s with his friends. You can say, well, I work for a living. I don't read the paper. I don't watch any of that stuff. I'm just living my life. You have a responsibility as a public citizen in the country.
That's the other side.
Because then they'll say, well, you ain't changing nothing, Dad. You're just mad about all this stuff. You can't change anything. And my response is, well, I'll do what I can. Maybe in some small way you can change something. The main thing is maybe I don't want them changing me. Have certain things that I believe are right and wrong, and the struggle is not just to give in to it. Politics, that's real easy. Party politics. I'll just be a conformist. I'll be part of the trolley train. Party line.
I've got to get elected.
Yeah.
And then
if you don't, you're not part of this party. You know, if you're a nonconformist, I mean, I have admiration. I don't like nonconformists. Just, you've known people in school. They're just contrarians and don't go along with anything.
That's different.
For attention. They just always pain in the ass.
That's
about
different.
Everything.
Yeah.
But when somebody, you know, seems to believe it, have a principle on certain things, we don't seem to do well with differences anymore. Differences of opinion. We don't. different worldviews. Maybe we never have done great. I don't know, but we just don't.
Maybe
You spend your time with like-minded people most of the time.
I think maybe that's it.
You feel comfortable.
Yeah. I would have never thought this stuff that you read on the internet about these questions they've got about the bathrooms and stuff. I could have never dreamed that up. Now they have it. Now they're trying to trigger me to be mad about it, and I'm trying to say, how do I think? Well, I really don't care. It's nothing to do with me. But
isn't it stupid? I mean, I'm not anti-gay. I'm not. I'm just not. I don't believe in discriminating against trans, or I don't. They don't have more rights than me. They don't have less rights than me.
They got the same, though.
Rights.
They got the same.
But the whole bathroom thing is, my solution was, I mean, if you don't know what gender you are, we'll create a third bathroom. Put a question mark on it. Fine. Men, women, and then there's another one. I mean, to me, it was just a stupid issue.
You know, I went to New York. Strange story. And I went to a pizza place in Greenwich Village. It was a Sunday morning. And I thought, I'm going to go in here and wash my hands. Well, it just said restroom. It didn't say men's or women's. But I just went on in. A girl walked in and goes right in the stall.
Right.
It blew my mind. But she was I thought, well, she's in another room. What's the difference? She was in another room. It was just
right.
It was just another room in the bathroom. So this is not. Maybe that's not even. But
it's just part of the cultural war.
And that's
part of the cultural war.
And that's irrelevant to the whole thing. The whole thing is.
You know where I do agree on the right though, is when if you have a male producing testosterone, he can say he's a girl. I believe gender doesn't change. You're a male or a female. Sexual identity can change. You know, you got people now, I'm binary. We've had androgynous people. I was raised on rock and roll music. David Bowie always had these guys pretending to be girls.
Always had.
And there was a mystique about it, right? The androgyny, is he a boy, is he a girl?
Hey, when I remember being in the fourth grade. If you didn't like those guys that were on the teen magazine, you always claimed they were gay. You know, so you didn't have to live up to their standards.
To me, all this is just androgyny. It's trendy now. It is. Because we're tribal and we're trendy. Something catches on, right? People want to get on that. Like I said, I don't care. I don't discriminate against it. But I do understand when you've got a male playing in female sports. The issue is, does that testosterone give me an advantage? Now, I can look like a female. I can say identify as a female. But I know it upsets if my parents are allowing me to play on the girls' team and taking your daughter's place on the team, I can see that upsetting you. This is a male. He's not a female. I understand that. I think people want to. I feel like I want things to be as fair as possible, right? Decent people, just innately, I want to have a sense that things are fair. And that idea that a male's playing on a female sport, and I think there's science that'll differ about how much of an advantage testosterone will give. I happen to think it gives. I mean, men are bigger and stronger.
It's huge difference, yeah.
Remember when the trans swimmer won? I mean, the right was all triggered by that. People in my family, it really upset them. This guy had it's just wrong, unfair advantage. I don't think they cared that he was identifying as a woman. I don't know if that wasn't the issue.
That's not the issue.
That wasn't fair.
It wasn't fair. I always thought they ought to have basketball teams for people under 6 feet.
I'm with you.
Because I can't play. I mean, that's not fair either.
Right. You're right.
So
we're discriminated against. You're under 6 unless you're awfully talented.
You know,
you're not going to do well.
You know, one way to combat crazy thinking is to trump the thinking. You know, get even more ridiculous in that same vein till it gets just completely ridiculous. But I don't know what we've got to get in this country where we're not getting upset on Monday morning because what they tell us to get upset about it. And then
Right.
get upset again Thursday morning about that other thing that just gets everybody upset. And
Right.
we're on the same team, aren't we? Even though these differences, aren't we still all on the same team?
I think a lot of people, most people, I think, are decent. Try to get along with other human beings as best they can. I do. I still think that. But like I said, from a political standpoint, from a media standpoint, being divisive, exploiting differences, it can pay. It can get you elected. It can make you a lot of money.
Exploiting differences.
It's nothing new. You're the other. He's not like us. He's the cause of our problems. Not me. Don't look at me. I don't have any solution to nothing. But I know he's the problem. It's tribal. We've seen it throughout history.
I've never heard it said like that, exploiting the differences, or it's never rung in my head, but that's exactly what it is. Trying to take advantage of their differences.
You think different. It's not just you look different. You think different. There's just something not quite right about you.
You agree with that person over there, and I was at the mall here a while back, and I was sitting with two friends of mine, and this guy that was walking the mall had on socks that were, I forget, but one of them said, "Now if I was him, I'd wear a different sock." The other one said, "I'm just like you. I'd wear socks that were come up above my calves. I wouldn't be walking around here with those socks like that." And I'm thinking, at least the guy's walking. We're just sitting here. He's trying to be proactive, but now if you had 4 or 5 people up there rallying those two guys on, we could have gotten in a war over those socks.
Sure.
If you said the right words.
Don't you remember in school, Dee, the bullies that would always point out the gay kid, the effeminate guy, the overweight girl, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and you get decent people to go along with that because they want to belong, be a part of it, be a part of your gang. I never liked it. I never liked picking on people different than me. I figure like they have enough issues without me piling on. When you're different, it's not easy.
Well, I mean, we could.
If you perceive yourself as an outsider, life is not real easy always.
I always felt like if I was
unless you're an artist.
Unless you're an artist,
a movie actor or a musician, being different, it's fine.
I always felt like if I was going along with the majority, I was probably not thinking.
Right.
Do you think that if a person doesn't get really irritated every day, then he's not paying attention to what's going on?
I do.
Because if you're paying attention, something should really piss you off every day.
I agree with you.
Now, what do we do about it, right? Write your congressman? Write a book?
You got a lot of hacks in politics that are able to use that to stay in office forever. The game in politics now is just stay elected. You're always running for office now.
That's such a shame, isn't it?
You're always running for office.
You're always running.
Always running.
You're running 2 days after the election.
And now it's celebrity politics. Can I get on TV?
Yeah.
I need self-promotion. It's nothing new with politics. Politicians, they've always been, it's a self-promotion game, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've got to think I'm the right guy. I'm the best guy. The shrinking violence don't do very well now. It's the ones that are out there. What do they say? Bad attention is better than no attention.
That's
and you
what
know
they
there's
say.
a lot of good people in politics. They just go about the business of every day doing the best they can to govern. But who are the ones that get all the attention? Ones on the extremes. Right.
Let me tell you about Capstar Bank. They're located in Nashville, Hendersonville, Gallatin, Athens, Madisonville, Sweetwater, Etowah, and in Cleveland at 950 25th Street and 3855 North Ocoee Street. I've used them. I like them. Give them a try. They're no problem. Extreme either way or on the liberal extreme?
Both. Left on
the farthest they can get.
We got to get politicians with some guts that'll say, I don't like this, on the left and you're right, you got these purists. You got to believe everything we believe all the way down the line, have this. I'm not built that way. I have various views about various things. That's not easy for me. But you got a lot of purists saying that, if you deviate at all, we want rid of you. Right?
And group politics, they even, they had the Lincoln Day dinner last night. I guess all of those were the Republicans getting there. And then does the Democrats have a thing every year in Cleveland?
What Democrats?
They said,
and that's another problem. I mean, you got areas, this is a one-party rule. You got liberal areas where the Democrats is one-party rule. I think you might benefit from healthy two parties. Just kind of working through things, agreeing when you can. Mm-hmm. Partisanship can be overrated, but, I mean, it's problem solving, isn't it? Nobody said it's going to be easy. Now there's no interest in really solving anything. It's just me blaming.
Drawing the lines. Yeah. Drawing distinctions.
Yeah. You got to believe this or you're out. It'd be like the Rotary Club. You don't believe everything, but you're out.
Everybody in Cleveland wants to say they're the conservative approach. Everybody's the most conservative. And maybe they are, but how's that?
It's turned into hacks, but the system's created it. It creates it.
What I think is good is those offices that are good 8 years, and the guy that gets in there, you're going to have him for 8 years. You're really serious about how you're going to vote for him. And when he's there, he can affect change or keep it the same. You're stuck with him for 8 years, and he's not. If you had to run for office every 2 years, you'd just be constantly going door to door.
Raising money.
Got to raise money.
If I'm not raising this guy here making noise running against me, he's out raising money.
He's making, and he's got more ads.
Right.
And if you're in a small town like us, you can go knock on doors and see people and see the voters. But if you get into Tennessee or something, you can't see them. You can't get everywhere. You've got to do it through ads. And the only way you can do it through ads is to raise money. And you can't tell me somebody that doesn't give to your campaign, you're not going to be a little partial to him. You'd have to. Wouldn't that be human nature?
Well, there's always a debate about that, where the politicians, I take money from you, you've got a important business, have certain interests with the government, and I've sold out to you.
Yeah, I've sold out.
Yeah. I think sometimes a little more complicated than that. It does seem like human nature. If you give me a lot of money, that I would consider you on my side. My side, right? And I should know you want something. If not financially, you want something politically from me, right? To have a certain view on, right, certain take, certain ideology on certain things. If you're giving me a bunch of money, doesn't mean I have to do it.
No,
and
but
you might still give me money because you can't give it to the guy on the other side. You don't agree with nothing he's trying to do, so you might still be giving me money. Well, maybe Hughes will come along. He's not the Democrat. He's not that lefty over there. I can't give him any money.
Or maybe you're just giving to their campaign because you just don't want to make them mad. You don't want anything. I think they should have a system where if you meet certain qualifications, maybe get X number of petitions, maybe 1,000 or whatever, then you should get a budget from our government to run, and you should explain how you spent that money. Then you'd have politicians that were business sense that could manage a budget, and you would also get candidates that had enough people that knew them personally that would sign their petition, that would be for them enough to get qualified to get the budget allocated for that position. But there's probably something wrong with that. I don't know.
I believe in campaign finance. Money's ruined a lot of things, Dee, and you know that. Big money has.
Always has.
It's ruined sports in a lot of ways. It's not like it was. I mean, I know I'm old. I'm 61 next week, so you're a curmudgeon. You're old. But I mean, I've seen different things. I mean, money has caused a lot of problems in politics and in sports and in entertainment. It's all the same thing. Mm-hmm. You got this political, right? It's all celebrity making money. I mean, politics is the entertainment biz now, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Yeah.
Part of the entertainment biz. It's advertising.
DeSantos.
Remember when everybody got, that's before your time, when everybody my dad talked about listening to the radio. Can you imagine that, sitting home with your mom and dad listening to the serials on the radio? Mm-hmm. That was before my time, but that was my dad's era. Mm-hmm. And then everybody got a TV in their home. And I think it's been a good and bad thing. Just like the internet's a good and bad thing. Mm-hmm. With the internet, everybody's a star now, right? Mm-hmm. I got me an account. I'm a star. I got followers.
Yeah. I got followers. I got people that agree with me.
Think about this.
Yeah. From 20 of them are from Indonesia, but I got followers.
TV, it was TV, and I was a kid of TV. I loved to watch TV when I was a kid. I think some of those shows are better than a lot of stuff we got now. Mm-hmm. But it was advertising, remember? That's when the advertising started. And that's what politics is advertising. Is it all false? No. I mean, you might think differently, but I don't think all advertising is fake. A lot of it is. You advertise stuff right?
Yeah,
it's not what it appears to be.
I'd say the guy on the Wheaties.
It's not what it's hyped up to be.
The guy on the Wheaties box probably doesn't eat Wheaties, right?
Probably not. They're just paying him.
And everybody knows. And everybody knows that. But there's no answer to this other than, I mean, it's just going to get worse because they're able to polarize us quicker, easier, and faster. And with people's cognitive biases, they're not going to see things really any different than what they've already believed.
I agree with you.
So there's not a lot we can do.
But the whole idea of democracy is allowing voices you don't agree with. It is. It's hard. I don't really want to listen to a bunch of stuff that I don't agree with. But the idea of a functioning democracy, there's people in office that have different views than you. Can you reach common ground? Can you find a way to work on things?
I've often thought of this. They say free speech. Okay, everybody needs to be able to speak. They ought to have it where it's freedom to listen. They may not want you to speak, but I should be able to listen to you too. Freedom of listening. Does that make sense? Not just of speech, but I have freedom to listen to anybody I want to.
Right.
The reverse of speech.
That's an interesting point. And this whole idea of speech now in the media age, in the internet, it's more complicated than people think.
Oh, it's a lot more complicated.
Because I've been accused of being, if you're the left accused of being suppressing speech. People on the right, they're suppressing speech. I think you talked about being a public citizen. Do we have an obligation to speak out when you think it's a lie? I mean, if it's misinformation, just a lie? Should I challenge the lie or just go along with it? It's okay. I'll go back to my golf game. It don't really matter. I think disinformation over time, the lies over time, it affects the culture you're in.
It does.
If the truth doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Truth's what I want it to be. And if you're on my side, whatever I say goes. You know it's a lie, but you'll go with it. And that's what you see. You'll go with it. It's all right. They're lying. That's the response. Okay, he's lying. They're lying. That's what you. I mean, it's tribal again. It's that whataboutism. Well, they're doing the same thing, Dee.
Well,
Richard, I thought you're a better man than that. They're doing the same thing.
Now you're a facilitator because you're allowing them to do it. Then you know it's a lie.
But it's so easy to rationalize things.
Oh, yeah.
They're worse than me, Dee. You think I have no integrity? They're worse than me.
I've always thought you were a man with real deep integrity. You just got that look.
Boring.
Well, just solid.
I was raised that way with my mother. I had a grandmother. She was, it's my only living grandparent that I spent time with. My dad's mom up in Elizabeth, and he talked to you about it when he was here. He's a mountain boy. I told you, I'm a kid of the suburbs.
Your dad's a great guy.
He's a mountain boy. He loved the mountains up there in Elizabeth. And his dad died when he was 10 years old. He was raised by his mother. She was a very devout Baptist, taught Sunday school, very active in the church her entire life. A fine person, very rigid. I didn't agree. I mean, thinking about it later, very rigid, maybe too rigid on things. But it was right or wrong. There wasn't all this gray. There wasn't. And there's a lot of issues that I'm certainly to the left of her on that she wouldn't agree with. But I did like her sense of a right and a wrong.
Well, she might not have been exposed to all other possibilities.
She wasn't. There's a different culture.
Different culture, different. And you know, we were a nation of more, I guess, more English people, I guess, or German descent, kind of from similar backgrounds, I guess. We're getting to be a culture where we've got to mesh better with all the different cultures, all the religions.
I agree with you completely. That's what exists. There's people that don't want it, but it's here.
And it's going to get
and
worse.
I don't see going back.
It's not going to go back.
Multicultural democracy, multiracial democracy, people have their opinion. I don't see it going back.
That's
not
why,
without something bad things happening.
Yeah, and it won't ever get
this
there.
idea that one side's got to dominate the other, that's not good. That's not good in any situation. I have to dominate. I'm morally superior to you. I have to dominate you. That don't work well with other people. They resist that.
They resist it. They'll levitate towards people that don't bother them.
That's true.
To people that don't feel as if they're restricting them.
But you'll have people with an attitude, I'm living to let live. You'll hear people say, I'm living to let live. I don't care what he's doing in his home. He has his culture, I got my culture. And I get that. You and I living together, we could have completely different beliefs and culture. We're neighbors. I've sat out there, we can talk. In your home, it's your culture, my home, their culture. Live and let live. But then there's some things that I don't think is live and let live that do matter, like you say.
That's where I think we have the obligation to watch some of this news, even though it is fake. We've still got to be aware.
It's not live and let live. I think what you're doing is wrong, or dishonest,
right,
or fraudulent.
Right.
That's where I would draw the line on live and let live. Well, I think it's fraudulent. It's wrong. It's hurting people. Right? Do I have an obligation to say something? Other areas you want to dress like a woman, D's being D, that's fine, ain't bother me. But if you were vocal, you were in a political office and you were taking a stand and I thought it was wrong and I thought it was hurting other people, shouldn't I have an obligation to speak up against it?
I think that's what America
You're in a position of power and it's wrong. Speaking truth to power.
Well,
sounds good. I see it in the movies. Speaking truth to power. Got a lot of people don't want to speak truth to power, do they? Not really.
No, you could get caught for anything. I don't
You're
know
fired.
that.
You question me on this, D, you're fired.
You're fired, yeah.
A lot of people like yes people. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes.
Well, they want
yes.
an audience more so than
I agree with the audience.
an audience is what they want.
Right.
But I don't know the answer to all of this. That's why everybody really is more. I believe there's the mass majority of people are neither Republican nor Democrat in their thinking, because they all really just want the same thing: to be safe. They want their kids to be taken care of, and they want to enjoy life, and they want the freedom to worship however they want to. And I don't know of anybody that doesn't want those four things. I mean, who doesn't want those four things? So everything else they're telling us is just trying to get us upset. And
That's true. I mean, there's certain core values that people have, things that are important to them.
They want to be happy. They want to take care of their kids. They want to feel safe. And they want to go home and enjoy their hobby, whatever that may be. As long as it's not hurting anybody, it doesn't matter to me.
That's true, but there's a lot of people that they harp and talk on the left and the right. You're destroying the country. We're in decline. They're destroying the culture. They're ruining the culture.
No, that is the culture. Being able for those things. I think we got to protect that. You know, here's another thing.
I watched a show on HBO. It was weird. A lot of people probably don't like it. Second season, Raised by Wolves. It's these two androids. Earth's been destroyed. The Earthlings come to this distant planet. These two androids. There's a white female, black male. They're android robots, and they're caretakers for human children. And what's interesting is they're really more relatable than the humans. The true groups of humans, you got fundamental Christians on one side, and you got atheists on the other that are battling each other and battling for these kids. It's really interesting because both sides have their problems. They're human beings, right? You can say, well, I identify with religious fanatics more than I do these atheists or these communists. But they're people. That's what's interesting about the show. They're still just, I mean, you see human qualities in both sides. They're trying to aspire to certain things. But underneath all that, they're still just people.
They're still
good qualities, bad qualities, both groups.
Yeah.
Whereas now we want to demonize a group, right? That group's bad.
Well,
this group's bad.
I've always thought of this. That's probably. I have a hard time expressing my thoughts, but we have to be a country that we allow people to live as they want to live. And the reason that is because if I'm a Christian and I want to go to church and I want to worship God, I want that protection. But we have to protect that, because we can't let us as a Christian majority make that a rule. Because once we do, we may one day not be the majority. Because if you go to Books a Million and you look at the Christian section, they'll say it's this top shelf over here on the left. If you say, where's the Eastern religious section? They'll say that end of the building. So we can't let the majority rule everybody, because one day we may not be the majority. So the country has to protect individual ideas.
I agree with that.
On whatever level, we can't make a distinction.
But you have minority groups that want to rule everybody. We know best. We're right.
Right. They can go fly a kite.
There's people that are not real happy about majority rule, Dee. They don't agree with it.
No, we've got to.
It's viewed as anti-American, anti-this, anti-that. I just don't agree with the majority. I mean, dissent's part of the tradition of democracy, right? You have dissenters. People disagree, people resist. It's nothing new.
No. You said some people don't agree with the majority, right?
There's people that don't agree with democracy's outcomes.
All right. Now, at some point in the future, though that small group may be the majority, and this majority may be the small group, we can't let either one control.
I agree, Dee, but people don't like to share power. Politics is about power now. It is.
And that's and
I don't want to share power with you.
So we
I
agree.
want my way.
So we agree where we're at. Now how to get there or stay there.
Right.
That's the problem. And I think everybody, once dissected, would agree with what I've said. How do we keep that is the problem. And I don't know.
But we have issues where I know polling is suspect, it can be, but they'll do all this polling. 55%, 60% will say, I agree with this. The other side, they don't accept that anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't care what public opinion is, what the majority of people say, I'm not with it.
All right, so
vaccines, for instance, majority of people, safe and reliable, take a vaccine. Everybody's got their view on that. You got anti-vaxxers. I don't care what the majority says. I don't care 60, 70% of them. I oppose it.
Then don't get vaccines, right?
You would think there'd be a way,
that they could not get it if
Right.
they don't want it.
Unless the government says you shall, and then you got a problem.
Then we got a problem.
It's biggest, in my
And
opinion,
everybody, I think,
my opinion, biggest mistake Biden made was requiring businesses over a certain amount to require vaccinations. I think his heart's in the right place. He's trying to save lives.
it was the fog of war, man. So we
he's
can't
trying
really
to save lives.
Yeah.
But he tell businesses, your choice, Dee. You got a business. You
I
make
think-
the choice with your employees.
I think during that first year and a half of COVID,
You would think conservatives, Republicans would agree with that. Private enterprise, they don't need government. I don't need the government telling me, making mandates on me. I can decide what's best for me and my employees, right? I mean, as a business, you're a business owner. I've never been one. You know what's interesting is people like me in government. I've been in government a long time. I do believe that government can do some good things. I do. Not everything, but some things they can do well. But people a long time in government see themselves as being experts in business, and people in business think they're experts in government.
that's right. And you know, it's,
Instead of trying to realize, I might know what I know. You know something different than me.
you ever noticed on Facebook or even on Twitter these people that knew all about this COVID? They were experts. Now they're an expert on the Ukraine thing. They've just switched their experts. It's all because it's polarized.
Feelings, Dee. And it's feelings and
yeah,
emotion.
Yeah.
People, most people's political affiliations, isn't it based on emotions and feelings?
The old thing.
Richard, you're irrational. I don't know why you believe that. That's what I believe. That's my feeling. To my core, that's what I believe. So your chance of dissuading me is not good.
You know that old saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. There's never been a more false statement ever said.
I agree with you.
Because they will hurt you.
Words matter.
They matter.
Political language matters. Words matter.
And you think something don't hurt your feelings, you have somebody tell you you're looking old.
I agree with you. And now the little game is to label you. If I'm a Republican, and you're a Republican, and you criticize me, you're a leftist.
You're a leftist.
You're a radical
You're
left.
a leftist loon.
You're a Biden supporter.
Libetard.
Yeah.
Isn't that what they call them, libetards?
Yeah, it works that way on the other side too. Mm-hmm. You're a rhino, D. You're not a Republican. That's the label game they play with people. And they label you. If you disagree with them, and it doesn't have to be that way. I might disagree with you on this one issue. It doesn't mean I'm in that camp. I just don't agree with you on this. But that's not how the group plays it. That's what we've been talking about. The group.
Well, they think they don't. They think they're affecting it, but I don't know. I don't know, when people go in there to that booth and they close it, only them and God knows who they voted for. I'll tell you this funny story, true story. My grandfather, Roy Ormby, went to church with Kim Randolph's grandfather at Union Grove Church of Christ, and that's when they all voted there at the church. And they had those, this was when, and I may have this story messed up, but it's pretty accurate. This was when Robert Kennedy was running, and he was supposed to be a Catholic, and my grandfather was a Democrat and had never voted for a Republican. So he told King Randolph, that was Kim Randolph's grandfather, that was his name, that he would vote, that he wouldn't vote for Robert Kennedy. I forget how it was. I forget what it was. But anyway, he was going to switch parties on that one thing. Well, when he was coming out of the voting booth, they had those little punch-out tabs, and one of the little tabs was on, so he takes his tooth and pulls it off and puts it in the ballot box. Well, after it was all over and they counted the vote, King Randolph went and got that card and found the tooth mark, and he had voted straight Democrat. But he had told him he was going to vote for this other. So things haven't changed. I think when people go into the voting booth, they really vote their conscience. I think when people go into the voting booth, they vote who their mother would vote for. Think about that.
Maybe similar to juries. I'm out here, not on the jury. I can make a comment. He's guilty as hell. He needs this. But when I raise my hand, I swear to tell the truth, follow the law. It is different. Now I'm a juror, D. I'm not just out here at the parties talking to you about this case now. I've got to do the right thing. I've got to listen, apply the law to the facts, and make the right decision. Yeah, I had that opinion out here. It's different now.
Isn't it something, raising your right hand and making that statement, how that'll change? It'll make you honest if you're wanting to lie, won't it?
Well, doesn't work on everybody, but I think it does make a difference to decent people.
Do you think
when you swear to tell the truth and do the
do you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth?
I think people take it serious. I agree with you.
If you know, the Bible says, do not swear by something. Some people won't swear because they think they'll say I affirm. You ever heard? They can say that.
I have heard them do that.
I affirm that because the Bible. So, do you think some people get up there in the jury, raise their right hand, swear to tell the truth, nothing but the whole truth, and not tell the truth?
Talking about witnesses?
Yeah.
Yeah, witnesses lie.
How could you live with yourself?
Human beings, D. We have a high regard for self-interest. Yeah, I want to do the right thing, but I got to look after me, look after somebody else. I don't want to go to prison.
The greater good.
Like I said, don't get me wrong. I don't think Mayo Mashburn. You remember Mayo Mashburn? Mm-hmm. One of his quotes. I had a lot of admiration for him. He was a tough guy in a lot of ways. But he was no nonsense judge, and he said the jury box was nothing but a platform for perjury.
Boy,
so I don't know that he always had a high regard about. I'm talking about anybody, witnesses, police officers, anybody. People, if they have a motive to lie, they may very well lie.
If it came to my kids, I guess I'd just lie, wouldn't you? I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I'm saying. It depends on what you're asking me, what it's about, what it regards.
And the situation.
I might tell the truth 99 times on that one issue. I'd lie.
I guess you could plead the fifth. I guess that's why they have it.
Well, you do if it would incriminate yourself. But yeah, I might view myself as generally an honest person.
Can you plead the fifth if it's not incriminating yourself?
You cannot. The judge would have to make a determination that it would have to tend to incriminate you, or you can't assert the fifth.
Let me ask you this. I've always wondered this. Why are most public defenders, now this is an interesting thought, but you show me a public defender, and I'll generally show you a Democrat, and you show me a district attorney, and I'll generally show you a Republican.
I agree with you.
And the Republican's more like the hall
It's not
monitor.
party, liberal, conservative. It's not necessarily party.
And the Republican's
conservative.
more like the hall monitor.
Right.
And the public defender's more like y'all just calm it down. Everything's all right.
Public defender, criminal defense attorneys can be controversial, Dee. We know that. Why? They're representing individuals. They don't represent the state. They don't represent victims. They don't represent the community. I represent my client. My loyalty is to the client.
Now say that again.
You remember how hard a time some of the Republicans gave Jackson, she'd been a public defender for 2 years. And she'd represented a defendant at Guantanamo Bay during 9/11, post 9/11.
She had to, right?
Well, I was impressed with her. She said, you don't suspend due process and the right to counsel just because there's a crisis or the person's perceived to be a horrible human being. And she's right.
She's right. We can't sway that. You're exactly right.
But I understand there's good people have a suspicion of that. How can you represent that horrible, who I believe to be a horrible person?
Well, she swore an oath, right?
If you believe in the right to counsel, Sixth Amendment right to counsel, due process.
You're really just a lawyer. A counsel is just really a...
You know she's the first public defender in the history of the Supreme Court to be on the bench. First public defender.
Yeah.
Well,
is that right?
And she'd only been a public defender 2 years. They made a lot of it. The liberal media made a lot about it. I mean, I admire that she was a public defender. She was on the Sentencing Commission. She'd done other things, but she's the first public defender.
Don't you... But...
And I happen to think public defenders can be good judges. They know the system. They know both sides.
I know one.
I've tried to be. But I understand where it can be controversial. And there's good prosecutors. And that is the movement now. You know, you had the whole defund the police thing. Now is criminals need to be in jail. And I get that. Violent criminals in particular. You know, we kind of swing back and forth. We went through a period. Let's try to rehabilitate people. You got, Dee, I will tell you, I'm getting ready to end 32 years as a public defender just about. We've had a drug epidemic the entire time I've been a public defender.
That's nothing new, right?
We had methamphetamine, now it's fentanyl, morphine, heroin, opiates. I mean, we've been in this in our area.
But I remember
and
when...
it fills the courts with defendants.
On the courthouse square at 30 2nd Street is the law firm of Logan Thompson Law. Since 1965, they have served the legal needs for the good citizens of Cleveland-Bradley County. If you've got a problem, they're no problem. Give them a call. What happened to meth? Is it no longer bad?
Well,
or does the public get aware of it?
When the epidemic started, you had the cooks manufacturing. They get the components to make their own homemade meth. Mm-hmm. Went through that various methods. To make the meth.
Couldn't buy matches and stuff.
Then, the law made some good changes in the law that made pseudoephedrine. Remember, you had to register for the pseudoephedrine.
Yeah.
So that was a good decision, where you couldn't just go into a pharmacy and get unlimited amount of that pseudoephedrine that you need to make it.
If I get Mucinex DM at the drugstore, I have to sign a card.
Now, it pissed off a lot of people with sinuses that needed it, but it was a good public policy.
Well, they'll give it to you.
Yes.
You just got to sign.
You just had to sign for it.
No big deal.
Yes, but a lot of people thought it was a big deal. You're punishing me. I just have a sinus problem. I'm not a meth cook. But it was an effective law. What happens is the law enforcement, the courts were able to really do some reduction in the homemade meth. There's always something else, Dee. Opiates.
Now it's
pills,
fentanyl.
Fentanyl, heroin. And It comes
Yeah,
from
what happened
it
to
comes
heroin?
from Mexico, comes from other places, made in labs.
So you're saying we've always had a drug problem?
You have the balloon effect. You have a balloon, you squeeze the balloon, the other side comes out, right? We're controlling this drug.
Now, why do we even-
There's always another drug
Now, if
where
it-
there's a demand. Where there's the demand, there's a seller.
Well, let's say that I'm an individual out here and I want to take meth, or I want to smoke pot, or I want to take cocaine. Do I not have that right?
That's the libertarian view, and I have people that I respect that have that view. I'm not a proponent. I'm fine with decriminalizing small amounts of marijuana. I mean, you see it around the country. I think it'll happen in Tennessee eventually. I'm not real keen on marijuana. I was a kid of the suburbs. In the 70s, that's when middle-class families were getting divorced, and that's when drugs came to the suburbs. Was in the 70s. I'm just telling you. Yes.
Not really the
I mean,
60s.
it started in the 60s, but it came to the suburbs. Middle-class kids. Not the dirty hippies living in the city. Middle-class kids were experimenting with drugs. You had some disintegration of the family starting. I remember families, friends of mine, their parents got divorced. You didn't hear about divorce before then. You had divorce, you had experimentation, had a lot of friends using marijuana. I mean, you can't convince a young person today that marijuana is harmful. You just can't do it. It's a losing battle.
You can't do it.
And there's that talk about it's a gateway drug. If you'll do marijuana, you'll do other
So
drugs.
is aspirin.
I don't necessarily agree with that either. There's lifelong potheads. You probably, I know some.
There's
been lifelong potheads.
I've got friends that smoked it ever since I've known it, and they're still smoking it.
So it's
Now,
a court
isn't
clogger.
that-
I don't think you should clog the courts with small amounts of marijuana. I don't.
Is aspirin a gateway drug? Just prescribed?
Aspirin can actually be toxic if you take enough of it.
So what's
You
the
can
difference?
kill yourself
So
if you-
everything's a gateway drug. I just think that if people allowed, if we didn't have to fill up the courts and the jails with nonviolent stuff like taking drugs, if cigarettes were a jail offense, half people I know would be in jail because everybody smokes. And they wouldn't stop if it was illegal.
I probably have a little different view than, like you say, public defenders have a certain view, maybe political view of the system. I've seen a lot of damage with drugs, Steve. And the war on drugs doesn't work. It started with Nixon and Reagan. I mean, not every president.
Okay.
The war on drugs is lost. We've heard that. Books written, articles, documenting it.
But say you have
There's so much corruption. There's so much, again, money corrupts.
All right.
There's so much money in the system. It's easy to look away, to allow things to happen.
But if you've seen a lot of stuff, a lot of damage for people taking drugs, is it the government's responsibility to worry about it? Let them take the drugs.
I think the government has a responsibility to the welfare of the people. Not a nanny state, not to micromanage your life, but I'm fine with reasonable regulation. Now we can talk about what does that mean, Richard? Reasonable regulation. We regulate a lot of things. We regulate guns, right? We regulate medications. You have to have a script for it. We regulate conditions at work, safety conditions at work. You don't allow people to just do whatever they want. The government has a role. The issue is how big a role and has it worked? And a lot of people would agree with you, it's just not worked. We've loaded prisons up for generation after generation. Huge cost. The financial cost is huge.
We would be shocked if they told true and accurate figures of what it cost us to keep the people in a jail in the state of Tennessee that was caught with this much marijuana. We'd all be really pissed off. You agree with that?
Generally speaking, the public defender, we represent people quite often with relatively small amounts. Now, even not particularly large amounts, half a gram is a felony.
How much is half a gram?
It's 0.5 grams of methamphetamine over is a felony, carries 8 to 12 years. Maximum of 12 years, you can go to prison over that.
Over meth?
Over meth. If it's for resale. The key is it for resale?
Well, what is resale? I gave it to my buddy. Let's go with pot, because marijuana is probably, I know people that's taken it, and it is a poison. But let's go with marijuana. People I know that smoke it and they work every day and it's not an issue.
Right.
How much can they get caught with in Tennessee?
It's a felony if it can be proven it's for resale. There's casual exchange over small amounts. Hey, Richard, buddy, you got a joint or two? Yeah, here, D.
Is that illegal?
Here's two joints. Give me $10.
Is that illegal?
Casual exchange is a misdemeanor. Class A misdemeanor.
Which is how much time?
It carries up to 11 months, 29 days, but you wouldn't serve that unless you really had a substantial record. Normally, you'd be given a suspended sentence, more than likely, maybe without any jail time. But it's a conviction.
Would it be on their record?
It'd be on your record.
Would you have to get a parole officer and a bond?
In our district, you would be assigned a probation officer who supervises you. There's a fine, and court costs has to be paid close to $1,000 for that small amount of marijuana.
And how much?
Then if you violate, we got to put you in the jail. That's a possibility. We got to load you in the jail.
If you do it again, if he asks you for another one.
And your point would be, yeah, you're putting me in jail. Okay, I violated, didn't report. I'm the high priority that needs to be in jail. What about all these other people committing burglaries, robberies, serious crimes?
Oh, we don't have room.
Most people say that's who needs to be in jail, right? Yeah. The whole system is built on, you got to prioritize who needs to be in jail and who doesn't. Now, judges can say a lot, I'm law and order. I get all that. But any judge, a good judge with good judgment understands you got limited beds in a county jail. And part of your exercising of your judgment, who should be in jail and why. Violent offenders, and then of course you have chronic habitual offenders. Most people say, yeah, Richard, I'm fine with that habitual offender being in jail. Crime after crime after crime.
What crime?
It might be low-level crime, but I think most people say if you can't comply with supervision, and you get people that can't comply with supervision, they're irresponsible. They can be homeless, semi-homeless. I can make excuses for them, but their lives are different than yours and ours. They don't have stability. They don't have a lot of stability. Mental health problems, serious substance abuse. It sounds like a cop-out, but they have obstacles for them to be able to successfully do what they need to do. Now, obviously, most people would say they have a responsibility to clear those obstacles. Do better. Fix it. Do something about it. Some will. But it's an interesting topic, but a judge has got to prioritize. Who needs to be in jail? Does this person need to be in jail? There's a limited number of beds. Or does this guy who committed a string of burglaries, home burglaries, does he need to be in jail?
So it becomes, how much room have we got? Can you send them to another county?
Well, these county jails, we live in a rural state. Bradley County is the richest state in our 4-county district. The sheriff, the county, they receive money from the state for holding state inmates. In other words, if I'm the judge and I revoked your state probation, say you're on probation for 3 years, you never reported, you committed another crime, Mr. Burris, you got to do that 3-year sentence, you'll be eligible for parole after 30%. Get him out of here. They put you in the back. They have an incentive to hang on to you on these 3, 4, 5, 6-year sentences because the state pays the freight. My attitude has always been, if you get sentenced to prison, you need to go to prison. The county jail is for holding people pre-trial, before they're tried, before they're convicted, and misdemeanor offenders. You get convicted of multiple counts of domestic assault on your wife. You violate your probation. You got 11-month, 29-day sentence. You didn't go to anger management. You got convicted again of assault. I sentence you to 6 months in jail or whatever. That's what the county jail's for, in my opinion. People serving lesser offenses like you're talking about, simple possession, A, B, and C misdemeanors. But the conversation we're having is it costs so much for the county to pay for county offenders in jail, much less anybody else. There's a benefit, what I'm telling you is there's a benefit to the county holding state inmates. So they'll hang on to them. Why is that important? Because then there's not room for other people because they're holding felons. This idea that you're going to be sent, that your probation, just because you're sentenced to the Department of Corrections doesn't mean you're going to prison. You could very well serve that entire time in the county jail.
If they've got room.
If they've got room, and you're going to be a priority because we receive money for you, holding you. Everything else the county's paying for. Whereas I've always believed that if you get sentenced to prison, you should go to prison. I always thought our region, this area, our 4-county area, would be a good location for a minimum security prison.
Be a great place.
Not a super max of the worst, but just, most people, they're convicted, most of the offenders in prison, a lot of them, it's drugs, theft. What drives the criminal justice system is drug offenses and theft offenses. And the drugs drives the thefts. And
if you had to rely on murders and rapes, there wouldn't be enough to keep it open, right?
Well, I don't know what the number of murderers are. Or sex offenders or armed robbers. We got our share, but...
When you say, are we talking Tennessee or you're talking... So you're in 4 counties?
Yeah, I'm talking about our area. Urban area is different.
Our 4 counties.
I'm talking about our metro, high urban density area, a lot more violent crime. You got a lot more street crime driven by drugs.
What's the crimes are driven by drugs? You mean?
All theft crimes. I break into your home, I steal from my mama, I forge a check.
It's all because I'm wanting drugs?
I'm not saying it's all, but it drives it. It's an engine. It's always been an engine. Substance abuse. You'll hear it, and I believe the offenders. I need to be in treatment. Problem is, a lot of offenders wait too long, Dee. They build this huge record. Maybe they've been to prison twice. Now they want to do a drug court program, which I believe in those treatment courts. The DA's not going to agree to it. They've built this record and they're not eligible for it. They're not getting into those programs when they should early on. I don't need that. It's human nature. I don't need all that on me, man. I've been in jail. I can deal with my problem. I'm back in church. You can easily rationalize it. I've been in jail for 6 months, man. I'm off of it. And then they get out, and what happens? They go back, live in the same place, around the same people, doing the same things. It's very hard to break that cycle. If I'm a habitual drug addict, been one since junior high school, how am I going to stay clean? I get out of jail and I'm flopping with my friend. My parents won't have nothing to do with me. They burned their bridges with me long ago. I got, my fault, their fault, whatever. I'm going to whoever and flopping with them, and they're all doing drugs. What's the likelihood of me being able to abstain from doing that?
Now, if I get out here...
Everybody in this apartment, there's 4 of us living in this bedroom, they're all using meth or opiates.
They're not back in church.
There's a girl offering me opiates. I've been in jail for 6 months.
Yeah.
It's hard. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think a lot of people can't, it's hard for them to put them, good law-abiding people, they can't put themselves in that situation where I'm an addict and temptation's everywhere around me. And the answer is, well, get away from it. And you can, but it's
hard. Where are they
I'm a convicted felon. I got no money. I got no car. I got no license.
I can't hire him. I got to sign something.
Whose fault's that, Richard? Well, I know. It's my fault. But it's still the reality of my life.
These are problems, aren't they?
It is, because people, that's what's sad. You see so many offenders, and they just, it started not finishing school, not graduating, number one. They spend they drop out of school, so many of them. When I used to go to court a lot and had a case file, I'd always ask them, how far they went to school. And the majority of them, they drop out. 8th grade, 9th grade, sometimes 12th grade they drop out.
But it was not graduated. Do you think
And
that's
the other thing they would always tell me, was there a dad in your home? Your father around? Nope. My mama raising my grandmother. My dad's dead, prison, don't know him, don't want to know him. That was, I mean, I'm telling you, that was the common thing I refrained. No father,
do you think
no education.
you think a father that's a workaholic and never stays at home is better than one that's not there at all? That makes sense.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Sort of some of us have personal experience. A 50s dad, he's a good man. He's not really engaged with the kids, but he works every day. He makes a good living. He supports his family.
That was a 50s dad. That was Archie Bunker, right?
50s
Or was
dad.
that Archie
You know,
Bunker?
don't come crying to me. That's not what I'm good at. I'm not great for emotional support, but you know, I set a good example for you. I put bread on the table, kept a roof over your head, right?
Was the 50s dad?
There's something to be said about that. If a 50s dad did a lot. They created stability. They took care of me. My father was a 50s dad.
It worked. Yeah, that's right.
Is it ideal? I'm not saying it's ideal, but is it better than no dad at all? Absolutely.
Well, what's the other one? The other one works.
There's a lot of men, Dee, that rather work than be at home. Mm-hmm. I go to work. You know, I might be real good at what I do. I'm respected. I'm good at it. I'm making a lot of money. I go home and I got to deal with family problems. I got a son I can't deal with. I love him, but I can't. It'd be easier for me just to work, right? Mm-hmm. I love him, but every time I'm with him, all we're doing is arguing and screaming and carrying on, and
I'll just work.
I just can't deal with it. Then my wife starts in on me. Why aren't you fixing this? What? I mean, I just
in-laws.
Yeah, I'd rather just work.
Yeah.
Make sure everybody's taken care of. But I get that. There's people they don't do well on that level. That interpersonal, trying to resolve serious, that's not their thing.
And that's
people
okay,
are wired
right?
I think it is. People are wired different. Mm-hmm. I think you need. My wife came from a single family. Her father wasn't around. I've always had a theory that one good parent's better than two bad ones. You need at least one decent parent. You do. You need somebody. It could be a grandparent, but you need somebody that's there for you, taking care of you, set some kind of example. You got to have somebody. We're not like some animals where we're born and you're gone. You're just on your own. That's not human beings. They don't do well. Take it from me, all these years of representing criminal defendants, so many of them spent too much time raising themselves.
That's a commonality.
I'm raising myself. I love you, Mama, but I'm going with the boys. I'm out of here. It's a problem. And it doesn't mean that their parent didn't try. They may love their child as much as I love my child. They just didn't have the ability to be a good parent.
Some people aren't meant to be parents.
I agree with you completely.
What do you think is the future of all this? Do you think it's just going to rock on like it's rocking?
One of the things that I guess bothers me the most about what's going on now, we've been in this period for a while. There's a lot of good things if you look close enough. Mm-hmm. It's probably a better time to be a human being now than probably ever, don't you think?
You mean nationwide?
Yeah, globally.
Sure.
If you read history, world history, there's a lot of bad history. Terrible things happen to people. It's the power over the powerless, and you just read the history; it's there. I think it's as good a time to be a human being now as probably any time in the history of mankind. But we should be doing better in this country than we are. We shouldn't have all the nonsense going on. There's problems that need to be solved. I guess the thing that worries me the most, there's just uncertainty. I sense that with people. There's just a lot of, I don't think people like uncertainty. Not knowing.
Yeah,
think about it, just not knowing. Mm-hmm. If you have some kind of, think about it, if you're not feeling well and you go to the doctor, I don't really know what's going on with you. You got some serious symptoms. That's not a good feeling.
Hey, how
you like to know. Tell me.
How much TV would you watch if you didn't know what time the show was going to go off?
Right.
I mean, think about, would you watch it if they didn't tell you what time it was going to go off? So I don't know if I'm going to have to stay up all night or not. I just won't watch it.
So do you think that people worry too much? I think they can, but there is things to worry about. The interesting thing is the problems we got, I think, are within our control to do something about them. They are. Immigration, for instance. You talk ones that'll trigger the left and the right. It's immigration. I know it's complicated, but I mean, we haven't had comprehensive immigration reform in decades. They just blame and Trump did this and they're doing that. I mean,
they need to sit down and write a good policy about. I think they should take statistics of how many could we use in the country. I think they should relate it to the workforce. If the unemployment's down, let this many in. If it's not, let that be the gauge.
You would think there'd be some way to have a better policy than what we got. I mean, it's a difficult problem. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they got all the answers.
They need to.
But we haven't really done anything.
No.
Effective.
Trump was trying to get a path to citizenship.
My problem with Trump is he identifies some real problems. I don't know that he did anything. My problem with Trump, number one, is I got several problems. I don't want to go into that. One of the biggest problems with all of us, not just Trump, but a lot of us, is self-discipline. You got to have, I'm not saying I've got it always. We all have to develop good habits, good self-discipline. You're going to be a politician. It's fine to rally and talk. It's a celebrity. I get the celebrity politics. But there's times you got to sit down with people you don't like and agree with, and you got to figure something out. And I don't think they want to do that anymore. You might disagree.
You think they're too...
I'd rather run to the TV and talk about how bad you are.
You never
Instead of sitting down with you, you know, I know what you are, you know what I am, but you have to really, work at it. It's boring, Dee. I think really what politicians won't tell you, day-to-day governance, day-to-day operation of government, it's not real exciting.
No, but they should be...
It's very important. It's extremely important to the citizens, but it's not real exciting work, and it can be hard work. It's not running to the TV.
You're not going to see Ted Cruz sitting down with Don Lemon and discussing something, right?
No, I don't foresee that.
Because that's two opposite ends, right? He's Tea Party and he's liberal.
But you would think, all right, you and I, we're from different states. You're red, I'm blue. You're a lot more conservative. I'm more liberal than you can understand. You would think, though, at some point, decent people, smart people that want to solve something, we can figure out some way to hammer something out. Infrastructure, for instance. Mm-hmm. You didn't have a lot of Republican votes on that. I happen to think the infrastructure bills, you might disagree.
No,
Richard is pissing away too much money.
No, we need it.
I think the infrastructure bill, and I don't know where the money's going to go. That's the other thing, right? They pass this stuff, and then who's getting the money?
Well, that's another subject.
That's another subject. But I thought infrastructure was needed.
Well, isn't that how we got TVA in the W?
Absolutely.
I mean, those were all infrastructure
bringing
projects.
Electricity to Appalachia.
That was
infrastructure.
Yeah. How would you get to Blue Ridge right now if you couldn't go through the River Gorge or whatever?
You just think on certain issues, there could be more common cause. But like I said, we've been talking. It doesn't pay. It pays for me just because I'm running for election all the time, and I look weak if I'm hanging around you trying to work something out with you.
And if I'm not yelling, trying to polarize in Cleveland, you got to really get the Republicans voting for you, right? To win.
If you want to win.
So you got to talk that talk.
Well, it's interesting. This is a very conservative county. It's a very red county, very Republican. You got, the far right, and then I think you kind of talked about it. You have people that's more, I don't know, I don't really like the word moderate. Is anybody moderate anymore, Dee? I don't know. People talk about I'm a moderate. Does it pay to be a moderate? I guess right now, does it pay at all to be a moderate? You might be out of a job.
I'm as modern.
I've got to be way here, way over here.
I'm
Be
about
in the middle.
I'm about as moderate as you get. But if I was going to run for office, I'd have to go to the far right, wouldn't I? In Cleveland. In Cleveland, I would.
I think your chances of election are better further right. I'll be honest with you. I don't recognize the Democrat or Republican Party right now. It's not the party that I knew in the 70s.
Neither
80s.
one.
It's not. Neither one. It's not the parties I recognize.
Remember the
They
Reagan.
have problems. They're different problems, but they both have some issues.
Remember the Reagan Democrats? Remember when they started saying, "Oh, they're not. That's the Reagan Democrats." I guess that meant you're.
Yeah, that's
you're,
when
you're a Democrat.
That's when the Democratic Party lost the working class, and they've never come back. Cleveland is a working class town. They vote Republican. The liberals lost the working class. They can't get it back. Their messaging, it just doesn't resonate with working people. You see it all the time. It just doesn't. The Liberal Party, they're for homosexual rights and illegals, right? Criminals.
Yeah. Well, will there ever be a Democrat that runs that?
Reagan wasn't a great president, but he's one of my near greats. You know why? I did like Reagan.
It's hard to not like Reagan, right?
I like Reagan. I mean, there's Iran-Contra. There's some things I didn't like. You know, Reagan's father was an alcoholic. There's a lot of people have alcoholic fathers, but he used to pull his daddy out of bars. His daddy didn't amount to whole much. Reagan had that gift, and I know other people. People like them and want to help them and help them succeed. Good politicians have people that they like them. They connect with them, and they want to help you.
Charisma.
With money, with vote. It can be charisma. Just
Charisma,
you got
yeah.
something, I'll give you money.
Magnetic.
Obama had that. I'm going to introduce you to all these people
Clinton
in
had
Chicago.
it.
Clinton had it. I'm going to help you. And then some people might be they have really good policy ideas. They could be really smart. They don't have that. They don't have that, whatever that is.
That thing.
That thing. I think Reagan was basically a loner. The person he was closest to was his wife, Nancy. Even the kids said he was closer to her than he was to us. He was always thought of as kind of a distant father, 50s father.
Yeah.
You know, his father wasn't around. But what I liked about Reagan, I know he's a B-movie actor. You can talk to him. I know all that. But he was inspirational. Reagan did, and if it's acting, good politicians, there is performance. It is presentation. Problem is now, most of it's presentation. Posturing. I just got to say the right thing. Maybe that Reagan was all posturing, but he was an inspirational leader, I think. I think to average people, he seemed to connect with them and inspire them. He was a rich Hollywood actor.
And maybe that was the time in the country that we needed that.
We did.
You know, sometimes you get people that
Well, it was the counter-revolution. You had the hippies in the 60s and the sexual freedoms, homosexuals doing whatever they want.
Nixon just argued with them, right?
And then Reagan brought in that counter-revolution of conservatism, and of course a lot of people on the left didn't like that at all.
And he didn't celebrate it. He just lived. He just had that. He just lived it. And he was John Wayne. We were voting for John Wayne in our mind.
I think you're right. We were voting for what our image of what we think a president ought to be. You're exactly right. And he got shot. I admired how he handled being shot too. He was always positive. I don't know what he was like in positive, but he's kidding around with the doctors. My father sort of has that quality. You like my dad. There's just some people.
They just got it.
They have, I don't know, kindness about them or gentleness. People just like them.
And it's not just to some people. It's as a general rule.
That's just how they relate to people.
It's like if you don't like him, you must have a problem.
Well, some people they might be good people, Dee, but they have a hard edge to them. They just do for various reasons. And like I said, I have no idea. I hadn't read that much about him. I think he was a hard guy to get to know, but I think to the public connected with that guy. And he and H.W. Bush, Herbert Walker, they did help in the Cold War with the Soviets. He did. That's why I think he's one of the near greats, Reagan. He ended it.
He did
He
something.
facilitated that. Both of them did.
I don't remember.
And
Bush
now
doing
we're
it.
sort of another
going-
Cold
okay,
War,
yeah,
whatever
now.
we're doing now.
Yeah. Hello, I'm Dee Burris. I want to inform you of a special election coverage we're going to have on The Discussion on May the 3rd at 6:30. I will have members of the Liars Table joining me as we watch the election unfold. Please join us Tuesday, May the 3rd on Facebook or YouTube Live. In The Discussion, it's no problem. Do you think that being a public defender, did you have to run for that office? I guess you did, right?
Well, I was an assistant for 15 years.
Who was
Charles Corn
Charles
was
Corn,
he was
yeah.
the first appointed public
Yeah.
defender. When I got out of law school in '89, the public defender system went statewide, every district.
Mm-hmm.
So he hired me over the phone. I helped move the furniture into the office. I mean, that was good of him. He didn't know me. I just said,
Yeah.
I hear you just got appointed
Yeah.
public defender. You need a lawyer? All right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was '89. And then he retired. I got appointed by the governor. And then I ran in a contested race
Seems like I remember you
as a
running.
Democrat against a Republican who did nothing but say he was a Republican. And thankfully, I won Bradley County.
Did you win?
Me living here and it helped me win.
Did you win big or?
I won. I was the only Bebb. You know, Bebb ran then. Bebb and Amy Reedy ran.
I remember you had a pretty good following
I did.
that worked for
I
you.
was the Democrat that won Bradley County. They didn't.
Yeah.
So I did really well in Bradley County.
That's your claim to fame.
Well, my claim to fame is I've held office under both parties. Both parties. I was a Democrat, and then Obama voted against him twice. Well,
know-
that's because he's black. No, it wasn't because he's black. He's a nice. I mean, he's a nice looking guy. He's charismatic. I mean, he looks great in the suit, and he could give a great speech. He could. I never thought his speeches had a lot of just great substance to them, but I mean, he's a very polished speaker.
I thought there's a little cliche-ish. What is
I
that the
agree.
word?
I agree.
Cliche.
Yeah. I just didn't think he was that qualified. I just wasn't impressed with him. Now, I know a lot of people, young people, saw him as inspirational.
Well,
Young guy.
and that was worth
I
something.
just didn't see it with him.
That was worth something. Him being an inspirational president. And of
course,
course, things were.
Of course, the liberals were disappointed at him, D. You know, they were all. You remember he had all these huge crowds, and they thought all this change was coming. I mean, they passed Obamacare, and look at what we've had since. We've had nothing but division since, right?
Yeah, but he did get a form of something started, so that was worth something.
A lot of people would say that health care to the insured was a good thing. But if you want to get hardcore Republicans going, you can start talking about Obamacare. I mean,
But when you got-
just start talking about it.
But when you got one of these guys working or these tenants that don't have any money, and they get sick, and they got to the hospital, and they got some form of coverage, then you understand it.
I agree. And it's a complicated issue too.
It's
I
very
keep saying it's very complicated. Healthcare. I mean, I'm familiar with it. My parents are elderly, having some issues. I mean, it's extremely costly.
I think that we need to work on stuff like that rather than the pronouns.
So the cultural war
Yeah,
never
cultural
ends.
war. Woke, whatever that
Yeah.
means. That's not even proper
I'm
English.
anti-woke. You're woke. I'm
Yeah.
anti-woke.
Neither one knows what it is. And
Kind of like the word though, woke. I'm anti-woke.
what does that? Is that even proper English?
I'm not sure.
What
Not
is
sure exactly what it means.
I think it means that you've woke up to the pain and suffering of everybody around
the
you.
oppressed, the
The
people that have been
oppressed.
marginalized.
You've woke up to it.
Yeah, we want them to have an equal seat at
So-
the table. And I get all that.
Yeah, we've always. I've always been woke, I guess you'd say. Or I just want to say aware. I like the word aware better.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, Richard, you're woke. Well, I don't want to sleepwalk through history, Dee, either. I mean, I can sleepwalk through. There was a book titled. I read parts of it. I mean, there's people that just sleepwalk through history. Nothing but. I mean, they just do their thing. They ain't really worried. Whatever happens, happens.
Somebody asked me first time, "Sir, you woke?" And I said, "Yeah, I've been up since about 7 o'clock." I didn't know what they was talking about.
But like you said, language matters. All these words, woke, triggered, right?
Triggered. Yeah,
I mean, it's
triggered.
just everything is labeled.
Triggered.
Yeah, he's triggered.
Yeah.
Say that to D and he'll trigger it.
What I don't like is people telling me how I'm feeling. There's nothing that makes me madder than that. Because how would they know how I'm feeling? And that when somebody says, "Oh, you're triggered," that really makes me mad because they don't know what I'm thinking.
I like what you just said, and I agree with you. And I've thought about that. People like to think they're empathetic to people different than them. It's really hard for most people. Me putting myself in you. Oh, I know how you feel, Dee. No, I don't know how you. I mean, we really don't.
The psychologists say that you're never supposed to. You know, if somebody dies and you go to the funeral, you're never supposed to say, "I understand how you're feeling." It's supposed to be bad, whatever.
Even though your intentions are obviously
yeah,
good.
because you don't know how they're thinking.
Yeah.
And at that point in their life, they're thinking, "No, you don't know how I think." And you're supposed to say something besides that. Because you don't know how they're feeling. So if it doesn't work at funerals, it sure don't work out here in the everyday life.
No, but I agree with you. Presuming you know how somebody feels.
Yeah, you don't know how they're feeling. And if you go on what they're saying, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, I say stuff all the time I don't mean.
We all do.
And don't
to
think.
deflect things away, or and I don't necessarily see it bad. You're not hurting anybody. You just sometimes you want people to just leave you alone. Will we be better off everybody mind their own? See, you and I have talked about the role as a public citizen, or do we all just need to mind our own business?
No, I think that.
I know some people should probably mind their business more.
Well, I think it's important to.
I might be one of those. Just mind your own business.
I've never thought about you as somebody that doesn't mind your own business. I mean, there's a difference between me telling you how you're thinking or telling you you're triggered. That's offensive. But if I say, "Here's what we need to do or we need to be thinking about," now I'm not pointing a finger at you. It's a broad sense statements that are okay. But when you start segregating and pointing out, so if somebody says, like when I go to the job, I say, "Hey, we need to start cleaning up." I'm probably not going to clean up, but I'm saying we're going to clean up. And, I would if I need to, but that's better than saying you need to clean up.
There's a lack of tolerance, Dee, right now for people's flaws or weaknesses. And we got a shaming industry. It's always shaming people. I go public. You hear what Dee Burris said? This is canceling. That's an industry itself, shaming people. And some people need to be called out. There's things that people say or do, and I think that people have a responsibility to say, "No, that's wrong." But do you make them go away? You ruin their career over something? Language matters, I agree. There's dumbass. People say dumbass things. Does that mean I need to go away forever?
I think cancel culture is wrong, but corrective culturing and stuff can be okay. You know, like the Will Smith thing, walking up and slapping Chris Rock. There's nobody that thinks that was okay, right? I mean, can you think that's okay?
Some people do. I've talked to people. He was defending his wife, Dee. His wife got dissed. He's trying to get in with his wife. He's out. He's trying to impress his wife. No, it's wrong. He assaulted him publicly.
Yeah.
And he's a comedian. And he's used to being critical. All these stars, I mean, that's part of it. That's part of the deal. You get all the admiration, but you get criticism. That's part of the deal when you're a public figure. I mean, that's just part of it.
I want the cancel culture to be my choice. I'll quit watching him if I want to.
I like that.
That's where I go back to free speech. I should have it should be my right to cancel him if I don't want to.
What about kneeling football players? Dee, you need to boycott with me, NFL. It's boycott it. So it sounds like you're not big on boycotts. First of all, I don't think they work.
No, I don't.
They don't seem to work.
No, I think that it's. I think if a person wants to not watch it, they can. If they want to watch it, they can.
I agree with you.
And if they want to, but don't tell me what I should and shouldn't be canceled.
You're exactly right. You don't agree with Will Smith? Don't go to his movies anymore.
That's right.
Don't watch him. Don't listen to him.
They say never confuse the art with the artist, because if you get to know the artist, you won't like his art. So that's a whole different thing.
Right. I will say that I don't know anything about Will Smith. It was surprising to me it was him that would do that, I'll be honest with you. Because, you have an idea what people are like, even though you don't. Will Smith, you think he's a likable guy.
Oh, yeah.
He's not a...
He's been in all the feel-good movies.
Yeah, he's not macho. He's not always running his mouth about stuff. I mean, it was kind of surprising to me that it'd be him. But...
it was so stupid. And he's got to be thinking to himself, why did I do that?
Why?
But I don't think that was him. You know what I'm saying? I don't think there's a reason to.
People do things, Dee, and they got something else going on with them.
They
lash out or something
happens.
They got something else bugging them.
Well, when he got up there and gave that award and started crying, I mean, there's something wrong with that guy when you start crying like that. I mean, something's bothering him, and it wasn't the joke.
He's good in that movie, though.
Which
King
one?
Richard, where he plays Richard Williams, the father of the.
I didn't watch it.
You may be against him now, but
no,
it's a good movie.
What, King Richard?
Yeah. He's the father of Venus and Serena Williams. Out in South Central LA, they were just working class, and he.
Oh, was that
or wrong? He took control of their careers early on.
Was it a true? It was a true story, right?
Yeah, and it's a movie, so I don't know how much, but he's really good in it. It's worth watching.
He's a good actor. He played a Muhammad Ali too.
He's good in that too.
He's not a little guy.
No, he's a big guy. I'm reading an interesting book, Dee, The Political Life and Times of Johnny Cash. I'm a big Johnny Cash fan.
I am too, but that was I didn't know he was big politically.
He was. And both the left and the right claimed him. Mm-hmm. He's an icon of the right.
Did he never...
He didn't fit into either political party very well.
He didn't claim either one?
He really didn't. But he, kind of what I was talking about and where I got my idea, his was all a politics of empathy, who he identified with, the feelings that he had. He went and he gave concerts to inmates. Folsom Prison. Kind of revives his career. Mm-hmm. So he was interested in prison reforms, wanted to help marginalized people, indigenous people, Native Americans. He was for Native American rights. He was an advocate for civil rights. You have a lot, whether you agree with what he did or not, I happen to agree with that as a public defender. If you want to know my political leanings, those kind of groups, those marginal groups, I like what he did. He was a lot more political than I thought he was. He really was.
I never knew him to be political. Who wrote the book?
He did it his way. It wasn't the grandstanding. It was just, he just took on, and he had a lot of problems. He had drug addiction problems for years.
What kind did he take? Like
opiates. He had a lot of flaws as a man, but he did take an interest. I view it as a politics of empathy. If he identified with them or had feeling for those people, thought they were being mistreated, he wanted to advocate for them. And he apparently didn't care how it affected his career. That's just what he did. I like that. It wasn't all calculated. Well, I'm going to be with this group because I know that'll be good for my career. There's a lot of people do that. It's all calculated out. I'll do this, and it'll work out.
It'll jumpstart my career or catapult my career.
Yeah, if I'm with this group.
Do you see any politicians in Cleveland or Bradley County that, and I'm sure you not going to say, but you're on the front line, right, of all of this?
Well, I really not. I hadn't gone to. I went to my first political function last week.
But I mean, you're on the front line of the court system,
the judiciary,
the judiciary, just the judiciary.
I know them. The civil side, D, no, I don't really. I've never.
Just
The criminal side,
judicial.
juvenile, criminal, I feel like, yeah, I know the judges, the people involved in the courts, the lawyers.
Are we going to be okay?
We are. You know, what's interesting is the ones that are running, I know them all. I have the ones I want to vote for, and I have my own reasons. They're all qualified. I mean, they've talked, you know, I'm more qualified. I mean, they are. All of them, in my view, are qualified. Well, I'm more qualified than him. Well, maybe you are, but if the base is qualified, based on experience, based on intelligence, based on judgment,
They're all qualified.
they are. Politics is a popularity contest, D.
That's all it is.
I mean, it is. And
Glad-
I'm not real great at that part. Politics is developing relationships with people, cronies. I mean, it is. That's it. It's the game. And the cronies can be real. You could be my crony, and it's not just what I get out of you and you get out of me. It could be, you and I could be friends. It could be genuine. A lot of it's not genuine. It isn't. It's convenience, right?
Yeah,
Transactional. I'm good for you and you're good for me.
and that only lasts. That can stop.
But loners don't do well in politics. Not really. It is a system based on developing relationships with people, real or fake or whatever it is. It's relationships. People willing want to help you, push you, get you that position. You need those people.
You think past being qualified, it gets into a popularity contest, and however you can get popular, whatever.
I think it's always been a lot of popular. It's not all popularity. A lot of it is. It really is. I think at most levels, it's just who you like, who you identify with. I like to be when candidates are running. I hadn't done it in this election. Say you got two guys running for DA, and I haven't watched their debates. Probably should have. But I do better when I can watch both candidates together speak. You know, if you're off in your corner talking about all this stuff and the other one's off in his corner with his people, that's all great. Everybody's just feeding each other. I think it helps me make a decision when I can see both of you on the stage answering questions.
like a debate.
Yeah, it didn't even have to be a debate. You could have 10 minutes. The other candidate gets 10 minutes, but you form an impression. I mean, I know it's pretty superficial, but you have a feeling about somebody. I like this guy, just how he's answering the questions. I like his suit. I like how he comports himself. This guy, he seems qualified, but there's just something he don't click with me. I think that goes on with people, and it's not even that conscious. They just register that. I like this person better.
Past the basic qualifications, it would be who can connect with the voters, given that they both work the same amount and get out to meet the same amount of people. It becomes just who connects with the people more. In this era, it could be a different era, I guess.
Yeah, and it's not just popularity. I mean, word of mouth too, D. There's people running. They're each is on both candidates for DA, all three candidates for general sessions. If you're around it, there's word of mouth on all of them. They've been around for a while, and people have opinions, and they're sharing opinions. What I learned about politics, you need a lot of people just speaking up for you. They're not the people who show up at the rally at the Lincoln Day. Just people out here, like you said, they have a political party. They lean a certain way. You need them speak up for you. Them, their family. Hey, you need to vote for this guy. He's a good guy. I've listened to him. I've been around him. He's this, that. A lot of people do it. They don't know. Think about it. The average person don't know anything about these judicial candidates.
They don't. When you say Sessions, criminal, all that stuff,
they won't even know what
I
it
don't
is.
even know what it is. I just know it's the judge, and I shouldn't do anything real bad around you.
Exactly. They're not always easy to run for. They're not making policy. I mean, they're not making policy. They're not legislators. They're doing. It's an important role, but they're in a certain role.
But do they have a lot of?
What I don't like, D, in our politics too, is that now I'm a brand. You know, projecting a brand. I'm a brand. I'm this and I'm that. And this guy's my man. You vote for me because I support him.
I don't like that either.
Some of that just don't. Okay, so you're for this guy. Even if I like that guy, what does that mean? What does that say about? Why does that qualify you?
It makes me think they're not as independent of a thinker. Does that make sense?
I agree with you.
You know, they're more trying to run on their own
Being
merits.
your own man.
Being your own man.
I agree with you.
If they're not then, how can they be later?
Yes.
That sort of thing.
Yes, I agree with you completely. I like to feel like that person they seem like an individual, their own person.
He's not a go along.
Yeah. I don't have to agree with everything he says, but I have a good feeling about it.
That's right.
He's not a sycophant. He's just not going along with whatever.
I'm going to try to draft behind him, not go with him or something.
I agree with you. And we don't have that now because it's a different system now. It's image driven. I mean, it's always been, but it's really image driven.
Branding. It's almost branding.
Labeling.
So,
yeah. You know me. You know I'm this. You know I'm that. You know I. Okay.
I think if I was running for office, I don't even think I'd have a slogan. Well, what's that going to do?
Conservative principles, family values.
Well, if you ran it on liberal principles.
People always say, Richard, how do you run for public defender? You represent people accused of you represent criminals.
Yeah. Yeah, what would be your slogan?
What are you running on?
Yeah. I'm trying
and you
to
talk about, right to counsel, due process, equal protection of the law, making sure they're treated fair. It's harder to run for than DA. You know, the DA is law and order, right?
In my
law and order, reducing these kind of crimes.
I don't like when I
accountability for criminals. I mean, it's easier to run for it's easier to run for DA than it would be public defender.
Do you ever think about this? If somebody said, well, we have a such and such a success rate. Well, shouldn't it be varied? I mean, there shouldn't be a rate at which you're. I mean, if it's true justice and true law, shouldn't the results vary from year to year a great deal? I mean, if you take
I think if I'm a DA, Dean, I've never been one. You want to try to be consistent. I don't think you need to be all over the place. You got to be able to deviate when you need to. I think that's what you're saying.
No, but I'm saying
you try
everybody
to be consistent as an attorney, as much as you can. You make make exceptions when you can justify it and make sense to you to treat somebody different.
That's a lot of authority for somebody to have the ability to be discriminatory.
DA is the most powerful position in the judiciary, D. More powerful than the judge. DA decides who to charge every crime.
But
who to prosecute.
But he's not
when
the judge.
When dismiss the case. No, the judge has to. The judge is important, don't get me wrong, but the DA is more powerful overall in the operation of the system. The ability to charge people with crimes is a lot of power.
It'd be hard for me to sleep at night. I'd say, well, I didn't see it, so I better not. But
who not to prosecute, who to prosecute, for what sentence to recommend, what to recommend as far as the sentence.
Do you
it's
know
a lot of power?
Being the public defender, and I know you can't say who, but do you think there are people that are in jail that you absolutely know they were innocent and you'd stake your life on it?
There are innocent people in jail.
I mean, people that you know for sure, they did not do that, and they're sitting in prison today, but we couldn't.
Sure. There's people that come through Sessions Court, could be in criminal court, charged on a warrant. The case is later dismissed. It can be dismissed because there's difficulties with the proof. DA will feel like they can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. The DA is not supposed to prosecute any individual unless they believe that person to be guilty, and that's the bottom line. That's the oath of a DA. Whether I like you, don't like you, whatever you've done, I don't need to be prosecuting you unless I'm reasonably certain you're guilty of the crime and I can prove it. There's a lot of people, especially in the lower courts, that'll be charged on a warrant because it doesn't take much to get arrested. The probable cause on a warrant. You swear out a warrant on somebody is not difficult. So yeah, there'll be people that spend weeks and months. Case will later be dismissed. It's not always one person's fault, but it does happen. Now of course, you hear about the people that were exonerated decades later. That's disturbing. You know, they always ask me, Richard, how can you be a public defender? You represent guilty people. And I always say, well, have you ever asked the DA about, not an individual DA here, but you know, there's district attorneys that prosecute people and they'll languish in jail like you're talking about for decades. Maybe be on death row and exonerated.
Let's take 5.
Right?
I look at your job almost as a ministry. Does that make sense? Because you're representing people that cannot afford an attorney.
Every case, that's the determination made by the judge. Yes.
So instead of running the soup kitchen or a homeless shelter or one of these or whatever other things they have, social programs they have, you're helping to fight for someone that can't afford, that's been committed of some kind of crime. Because I could simply go to the police station and say, Richard hit me. They can serve me with a warrant, right? Because I said, do I have to have any proof?
Have to have a swear to a warrant.
All right, I swear out a warrant and say, Richard hit me. I take it down here to the police station.
There's a finding of probable cause on the warrant issued.
And I go down there and my face is red right here.
Right.
And then they say, well, let's go arrest him. They come and arrest me. They take me there and the judge says, $500 bond.
Now, your judges they like it better when there is some police investigation of the case.
Well, say there's
not just you saying I did it and taking a private warrant, where it's referred to law enforcement, they've investigated and they agree.
Well, my face was
there's probable
red.
cause that a crime was committed.
Well,
you talk to the officer, he does a report.
My face was red, and a witness says he did leave.
You're the witness. Richard hit me.
Yeah, it was my. All right, now I put it on a
We're
bond.
arguing over politics, and he took a swing at me.
Yeah. And he saw it. Well, he didn't see it, but he saw you leaving, and he did see my face was red and I was crying. All right, so now they swore out a warrant. They've come and arrested me. They take me. The judge says, well, there's probable cause. We got a guy that his face was red. Somebody said he was leaving. And when the police got there, I was crying. So I have no money. I'm going to go to jail. Now you've got to defend me.
Public defender represents people that are determined to be indigent, poor by the court. They generally have, they don't have status or power in the community. They don't. None.
None. Zilch. I don't even know they're there on a normal basis, right?
You're exactly right. It's easy for them to be viewed as invisible a lot of times. They live on that side of town. Not to make you a bad person. It's just that's not who you're among. That's not who you live with.
It's not your thing.
Exactly. That's not who I associate with. I have no concept of. I don't know them. Don't know anything about how they live.
Do you sometimes?
I think it can be a vocation. You mentioned that. I think it started out. 2 books I read. I remember. I thought you might ask me this. And it's 2 books that I read that I remember had an impact on me. My dad was a big reader. Not saying I read as much as I should. I like nonfiction better than fiction. But I read a book. Pat Conroy was a Southern writer. I think he may have been Ivy League educated, but he was from the South. He wrote for a newspaper. He wrote novels. He wrote a novel, The Water is Wide. It's a memoir / novel, so I don't know that everything's truthful. They made a movie out of it with John Voight.
John Voight.
And I remember reading the book. It was in the early 70s. I liked the book, and I remember liking the movie. He was a school teacher of rural black children on this island off the coast of South Carolina. School teacher. His experience. Where these very poor, illiterate kids. I don't know that classroom is the size. You know, with teachers now, the issue is class size.
Yeah.
But I remember, and I hadn't read it. I read it one time, and it just, I liked that book. You know, he was, I like how he described the countryside and those children. I mean, he was basically teaching among a really, really poor community there in South Carolina. I forgot the name. It was just some little small island off the coast there. I read that book, and that had an impact on me. And then I read Norman Mailer's Executioner song about Gary Gilmore. And they made a mini-series with Tommy Lee Jones in it, which was really good. It's a 1,000-page book. I think I read it all. I remember really liking it. Mailer was a great writer. It was a nonfiction / novel. It was a series of writers. There were, was it New Journalism? He was part of the New Journalism. Hunter S. Thompson, Norman Mailer, was a bunch of them. Thomas Wolfe, The Right Stuff.
Yep.
I love The Right Stuff. That book and that movie. But it was about Gary Gilmore. He was not dumb. He had an innate intelligence, but he was a career criminal, petty criminal, and he went on a spree with a young girlfriend and killed 2 tenants in robberies and got caught. It was in Utah with the Mormons. And they imprisoned him, and the death penalty had been abolished. You know, that's how Charles Manson avoided the death penalty.
All the years.
Yeah. They had reinstated the death penalty, I think it was 1976. And he was tried and convicted, I think, of both those cases, robbery, murders. I mean, murdered for no reason, just because, I guess, well, there was a reason. They were a witness. He just killed him. But he'd been to prison before. But the way Norman Mailer described him, I mean, he was an intelligent person. He's somebody that maybe could have gone another way because he was smart. In fact, he has a brother, Michael Gilmore, who writes for Rolling Stone magazine. Found that out later. That's interesting. You got one habitual criminal that the state executed when they reinstated the death penalty, and then Gary Gilmore's a well-respected journalist. Same family. Interesting family, too. He wrote a book about their family. As a family, his parents were basically traveling con artists, the Gilmore family. Michael wrote a book about his family. But there's something about that book that it did capture my imagination. I really liked that. And I don't know, for some reason it created an interest in criminal law. Not about criminal defense, but criminal law. Because criminal law it's the people business. It's people deciding what to do with other people, right? And I always tell my clients, if you don't want a judge or anybody telling you what to do, you got to stay out of the system, because once you're in the system, there's other people making decisions about your life, right?
And that's a whole nother thing. We get into paroles and bonds and all that stuff, right?
Right. But I guess, and I don't want to overplay it, but I remember reading both those books, and that sort of developed an interest in criminal law. And then when I was in law school, I went to law school in Memphis State, and Memphis actually had a Metro Public Defender's office. Nashville might have had one because it's a large city. They actually had a public defender's office when I was in school there. It wasn't statewide. The system before that was just appoint individual attorneys to indigents, which is, in my opinion, not a good system. You got a list of attorneys, and this defendant will be assigned Dee Burris. This defendant will be assigned. I'm not saying they're not good attorneys, but it's an appointment list, and most of those people are trying to make a living practicing law, doing other things too.
On this, with paying. So on this, you pick. Do you sometimes say, this attorney would be better for this person?
It's an interesting point, and I do agree with you. All lawyers, like all of us and whatever we do, we all have limitations. What did Clint Eastwood say? The man needs to know his limitations.
Yeah, needs to know them. He didn't say we have it. He just said that we know.
And he's right. I don't think most people want to acknowledge their limitations. But you're right. I've got really good lawyers, career lawyers in my office. They really are. I'm leaving my office in good hands with Leon.
When is your
end of August, 5 more months.
Is it you're not going to stay another term?
No, I was 15 years as an assistant. Then I was appointed for a year. Then I ran in a contested election. I've had 16 years as the elected public defender, 1 year as the appointed public defender, 15 as an assistant. Been a good career. State's been good to me. It's been a good system. It has.
You've had a good job, haven't you?
It has been a good job. I didn't pay anything in the beginning. Now there's step increases for the attorneys, which a lot of people say, there's too much money. I mean, in government, the money in these offices are tied to salaries and benefits. Mm-hmm. Well, they're making too much money. They got this. Well, you can argue about that, but if you want good people to stay, you have to offer them something, Dee. I mean, you know that. You're in business. You want them to stay, you got to sweeten. It's got to be incentives over time. Or they'll be looking somewhere else.
And somebody will pay them.
But it didn't pay. My son started out right out of, he's got a finance economics degree, and he's got a good job with U.S. Express. He started out with a lot larger salary with an undergraduate degree than I did with a law degree in the public defender's office, starting out. But over time, the budgets increased, of course, and they created this step increase system where you can keep good career lawyers. DAs and public defenders, the same system. The DA and I make the same salary. It's identical. They have some revenue streams that we don't, but the state statutory salaries are identical based on years of experience.
Why would the budget be different?
Well, the public defender, Dee, doesn't represent all defendants. We represent the ones too poor.
Ah, yes, I see. Yeah.
Whereas the DA's rationale is we prosecute every single
yeah.
crime.
They can't be under the same budget.
The neighbor who killed the dog to the guy who's committed the horrible sex crimes.
Yeah.
So we're supposed to have 75% of what they have as far as staff. That wasn't that way in the beginning, but over time, and I think that's a good rule. We're supposed to have 75% of whatever the DA has. So there's more parity now than there was when I started. We've come a long way. When I first started, we were kind of in that system of either probation or prison. I've been a part of, and not just me, but my office, been a part of creating these treatment courts, which I'm proud of. They're good for the right person. It's court supervised drug treatment. I was on the committee for 18 months where I really learned how politics works for the workhouse committee, where we built the workhouse addition to the jail. And it was a good education. Some good people on that. It took us 18 months to hash it out, develop a plan. Disappointed right now that it's not being used as a workhouse as I believe it should be. It's being used just to house regular inmates, but the idea was, and I think the average citizen likes that. If a person qualifies, if they're nonviolent, I'd rather have them working every day than just laying in the bunk, in a pod.
Absolutely.
Get them out, get them work, but they have to have a job, and they got to get somebody to get them there. And you're dealing with chronic drug addicts. A lot of them don't have work history, Dee. You can ask the DA. Ask the DA. He don't have a work history, Richard.
Yeah.
He ain't never worked. didn't finish school, nowhere, or it's, it's odd jobs. It's roofing for a few months, off the book stuff. Really what we need is, we have some where employers would be willing to take these people. If they qualify, if they would tell the judge, look, you got a man that qualifies for that workhouse and you put him in there, I'll give him a job. And we've had some of that. Wish we had more. We have, trustees there. When I look around, Cleveland is not as clean as it ought to be. I see a lot of garbage downtown.
More so than it used to be.
I mean, you go to Athens, it's clean. It's always been clean. When I first started, we had a community service project where the community service coordinator, where somebody didn't want to go to jail, the alternative would be, well, we'll give you 10, 15, 20, 30 days community service based on your conviction. I think they have community service, misdemeanor probation does, but there's a lot of things that, the inmates that you described, low level, just revolving in and out of jail, they got to be supervised, of course. And you got some people not going to work, Dee. They're not going to do it.
Well,
they're not going to cooperate. But there's those that always will. You put them out there. I've had community service workers at my office. They generally do a good job. They come in. You're not worried about them. They come. They want the hours. They got a system now where they can get money off their fines if they do community service. They can get $50 a day off their fines if they do 6-8 hours of community service. Be surprised, you can't. A lot of people won't do it.
Well, how are they supposed to get the fine off if they don't have a job? I mean, isn't that
Well, there's mandatory fines, and we had a judge that's been retired for a while, and he was a conservative. He wasn't a liberal by any stretch. He was a middle of the road conservative, and he always felt like the fines and even some of the sentences were too punitive. Keeping people on probation just years after years. Oh yeah. Mandatory $2,000 fines for every count, which he knew there's no chance they're ever going to pay it. So they stay on probation all this time.
It's worse than just.
That's been in place for a while. But absolutely, you're convicted of a felon, and you have, restitution is different. When you have a victim, you're making a victim whole. Normally the judge he does have a different attitude. They want that victim compensated. Somebody broke into your business and stole. He pleaded guilty and promised to pay.
Well, yeah, they got that
Obligation of the judge is he needs to be. They know their limited basis of income, but they need to be paying on that as best they can. It's always, again, it's people deciding what to do with other people. It's the perception of the judge, whether or not this offender is doing as much as they can do. We get a lot of probation violators. You just got a lot of people, Dee, that have real difficulty with probation. They just do. I've talked about some of the reasons, but it can be discouraging. It's been a great career, right or wrong. Any job after a while, at least I'll speak for myself, and maybe a lot of people feel that way, there's a sameness to it or a repetition to it that you're just kind of tired of. The court system's been good. We got a good overall system. Doesn't mean there's things that couldn't be improved. Just ask the candidates that are running. There's concerns about the operation of the General Sessions Court. There's concerns about other areas, and there's always. I've an attitude. There's always room for improvement. Anything we're doing, we can't be so arrogant that we think, oh yes, I'm in charge. Everything's fine. There's always ways to make things better. System is better than when I started. It is. Not saying it was bad then, but it was just limited. It was probation or prison. We didn't do these other things, these alternatives. Some people say, well, those are progressive. I don't believe in these progressive measures for criminals. Well, then you're going to have to pay for them to be incarcerated. You want to pay for that. And the financial note is tremendous. The DA has a responsibility to public safety, number one. That's the responsibility of a good DA, is safety. He has and of course he has an obligation to make sure the defendant's rights are protected as well, and that he's guilty. But their responsibility is public safety and to the victims of cases. Public defender, my responsibility is to my client only. My client. Not the community, not society, not the common good. I'm protecting the rights of my client, whatever he did. Like him, don't like him. That's the responsibility of a criminal defense attorney and public defender.
Do you think you're getting
It's a different relationship. And I'm seeing a lot of the same people. I have defendants, now I've had their kids, now we're into grandchildren of some of those same families. You know, the sad thing is a lot of the same generational families that are in the court system.
We didn't solve the problem, evidently.
Well, as much as I want to brag about how we've improved things, no, we haven't. I'm not a criminologist or criminal justice major. There is underlying social economic reasons for crime. The biggest driver is drugs. I'm just telling you, substance abuse.
You know, you've actually changed my mind a little bit on this. I've always kind of said, hey, taking drugs is your own business. But what you're telling me is it's such a burden on society
And families.
and families
And their children.
that it's not. You've actually changed my mind on this thing.
Yeah, they're not just affecting them; they're affecting
Yeah,
other people.
I thought
they have children out here, not taking care of them. That are left towards the state.
Do you see yourself?
So if I'm a substance abuser and I have sympathy, they're human beings. We're all supposed to try to get our act together, aren't we, Dee, if we can? I mean, we have different backgrounds. Some people come from horrendous backgrounds that I can't even imagine. I mean, I'm privileged. I'll talk about it. I am. I have advantages that most of my, if not all of my clients never had. That's the truth.
Maybe more than all of them had.
But still, and maybe I'm just kidding myself, we still have a responsibility wherever our station in life is. I mean, be decent public citizens, try to get our act together, be the best people we can, right?
Yeah, and I think that goes back
Instead
to
of giving up, just keep doing the same thing over and over and over.
And I think that goes back
over.
to our original discussion of we have an obligation to speak up when we see things aren't wrong, whether it be in the news or whether it be as a public defender or whatever the thing is.
I think we should.
Do you think that
But
you're
the retort I'll get, you're angry, Richard. You're not changing nothing. You can't change anything. I think we can in our own little way, change some things around us.
Are you seeing a second act? I mean, is this it? No more
I hope
Richard
I'm not
Hughes?
Washed up.
He's retiring.
That's the thing. I'm 61 next week. I hope I'm not just washed up.
What are you going to do next? Because you're too smart, you're too valuable, and you're too driven to just say,
Well,
I'm going to go to the flea market.
I don't know that all employers see it that way. You're a 61-year-old person. I did training. I'm going to get listed as a family law mediator. I have in my mind, it's been around for a while. It's nothing new. We got several attorneys in town that mediate custody cases, divorce cases. In fact, it's a requirement of the court. If it's a contested divorce, the judge orders mediation if they can afford it. They're supposed to go through mediation, see if they can resolve it.
Prior to the divorce?
Prior to a trial on the divorce.
If it's contested.
If it's contested.
What does it mean? They just couldn't figure it out?
Can't agree on custody, visitation of the children, child support. A lot of people will agree on the divorce anymore because it's irreconcilable differences. If Kelly and I got divorced, we could both go in and say we just don't, it's just not working anymore. There's differences.
Divided up in two.
They've made it easier. Some people say divorce is too easy, but in the old days, you had a lot of people staying together shouldn't have been together. With kids subjected to stuff that they shouldn't have because there was a stigma. When I was a kid, or my dad, not maybe my age, but my father's age. I mean, there was a stigma on divorce.
I remember.
Now there is no stigma.
I remember.
There's no stigma on divorce.
I remember people saying they're divorced.
Yeah, it was kind of a.
Now it's kind of like, you mean you've never been divorced?
And good people are divorced. I mean, I know people, they're good people. Anybody can marry the wrong person. It can happen. Now, if you keep doing it, I wonder about you. If you keep marrying the wrong person over and over again, you need to learn something.
But you've got that right.
Absolutely. I mean, you do. But this family mediation is something I want to do.
Will you have an office?
I can. A lot of them, can operate out of the car. You go to the law. Some of it's done even by Zoom. You have to have a meeting place. It'd be the lawyer's office. I'd probably have. I might associate with somebody if I can. But this family mediation, I think, is interesting. It's similar to kind of what I've done as a public defender. We do a lot of mediation, negotiation, with people.
Yeah.
So I'm used to conflict. And it's conflict resolution. That's what the law business is. It's conflict resolution. So I'm going to try that, and then maybe some. I think I might have a chance to do some teaching at Chattanooga State, maybe hopefully Cleveland State. I think I would like that, doing some teaching part-time. Adjunct, it's just you're not full-fledged professor, but you can teach a course or two. I've done it in the 90s. I taught at Cleveland State when they had a paralegal department, and I kind of liked it. I might try some substitute teaching in the schools. My wife's put the gauntlet down. She says, I don't think you can do it. I don't think you got the patience or the do it. So, how it is when somebody puts the gauntlet down, you kind of want to.
Are you excited?
You kind of want to prove them wrong. It doesn't pay a whole lot, but every week, Dee, they need subs. People say, why do you want to do that? I don't know. I always enjoy juvenile. I like children. I do.
Well, you'd be at different places all the time.
You would. Different schools, you're just kind of.
You don't have to. They're not
super sub. You just come in there that day. Everything but math, Dee. Now, algebra.
Well,
they're not going to let me to the algebra classroom or the calculus.
You remember when the substitute teachers would come in, you didn't do anything that day. Remember?
Well, you're exactly right. I think I want to do something besides just sit there with them, be a babysitter. But
are you excited about this new transition in your life?
I sort of am, because really everybody in my office that works for me, they've done something else besides being a public defender. To a person, public defender's been a great career. 32 years. I mean, people say, well, you just ought to ride it out till you're 40 or whatever. I mean, in fairness to me, they all did other stuff. They were in private practice. Leon was in law enforcement,
Yeah.
and with DCS. So they had the chance to kind of do some other. I mean, I've never done anything else. So it is kind of a challenge. I mean, I went directly from my law school, my law degree, to public defender. It's been fine, but I want to think to myself, this is not all I can do. There's some people you like to think, well, I did this. I hope I did it well, but it's not all I can do. Let's see what else I can do, if anything.
Who are you proving that to? Yourself?
That's what you do. You prove it to yourself. And it's a. People walk up to me. You're getting your retirement. Well, yeah, it's a good retirement, but I stuck with something for 32 years. Dee, that's a concern now that people can do. I mean, there's a lot of people won't stick with anything, and then the concern is they won't let you stay with anything, right? People work. I mean, here like Bowaters, people, all the major companies here. People my dad's age, they made their whole career working for one company. Bendix.
They got rid of the Archie Bunkers.
Guys that, they, without college education, they went to work, stayed 20, 25 years, stable, good, made good livings.
Worked swing shift, whatever.
Yeah, in the private sector, that's, we got the gig economy. I mean, you know better than me. I mean, it's changed. There's a lot of changes. There's a lot of changes that have occurred. So I think part of it's me.
What's the gig economy? What does that mean?
Gig economy is like. I went out to Bozeman, Montana a couple weeks ago, and I took an Uber. I got my family was doing one thing, I was doing my thing. My son called me his first Uber, and they're independent contractors. It's so you work for somebody, but they have a car, and they just get paid per ride. You got a lot of both. I took 2 Uber trips. Both of them they retired from other things. I'm not saying that's what I want to do, but they were telling me they made good. That's a tourist area, so those guys were they were doing cabins 6-7 days a week. They were both telling me they made good living doing that. If that's your thing, but it's those kind of jobs.
That's
Uber,
where they get this. That's where they get the saying, "That's my gig."
Yes, and some of them are just temporary jobs. But I mean, if you follow along, the economy's changed a lot. The nature of work's changed a lot. I've changed some, so I've had a young lawyer die in my office. Kevin Miller. He was well liked, smart guy. He died of several years ago prematurely. I had a secretary who lost both of her children back to back, and now people my age are just a little older are dying. I don't want to make a big deal out of it, other than the clock is ticking for us. And if you're comfortable where you are and you want to stay somewhere 30, 40, 50 years, more power to you. There's nothing wrong with that. There's people that do that. But if you got things that interest you, you got things you want to do, as you get older, you better get on with it, because you just don't, the cliche is true, you don't know. So I don't know if they impacted me or not, but the lawyer in my office dying, and I'll just pick up the paper, and there's people that I mean, they're not necessarily my contemporaries, but they weren't much older than me, and they died. They're gone. So, like I said, I think, you read about these super freaks that are 90, 100 years old doing all these things out here. That's pretty rare. Most of us, over time, a lot of people, your body gets worn down. There's things happen. You're not going to be able to do some of the things maybe you thought you could.
You know what I think gets in the way? It's not as much, I think health is one thing, but life gets in the way. It won't be long, you'll have 2 grandkids, and they'll be wanting you to watch the grandkids while they're doing this. And
that's a good point.
So we need to quit while we can, while we want to, and while nobody needs us.
That's a good point.
My problem is I take a job and I'm there for a year. So I've got to decide today if I'm going to retire, and I've got 2 years worth of work that I've already committed to. These people will be taking insurance policies out on me.
Well, you're making a good point. I'm very fortunate to be able to retire out of this job because I have a pension. It gives me this chance. You know how many people do? A lot of people, I see people 70, a lot older than me, in their 70s, working fast food, a lot of places, long hours. I never thought that was fair. I don't know what their life is, but
I know it's not fair. I don't care what they do.
And
right?
they're drawing their Social Security, and that's it, and obviously they can't live on it. And, that's a long discussion, but I see people doing what can easily be perceived as, it's not meaningless, it's not unskilled labor either. I don't agree with that concept.
No, I don't either.
Anybody that's good at whatever job they do, they're skilled at it.
Yeah, I hate the word unskilled labor.
I don't like it. You're doing something.
Or non-essential.
Yes.
Can you imagine waking up and saying, well, I can't go to work, kids? Why? Well, they said only people that are non-essential workers can't go to work.